Still brilliant there.
I must try and get one of these at home. I don't think I've got the room, unfortunately, nor the sword bearer. There you go. So, welcome all to today's full council meeting. Welcome to the members of the public who are attending in the public gallery. It's nice to see a good crowd. Those in the conference hall and those watching this meeting via our YouTube channel. A couple of little safe-keeping things. Can you please ensure your phones are on silent? And for those in the building, I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. Please leave the chamber by the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. As with any council meeting, please treat each other with due courtesy, tolerance and respect. So, moving on, agenda item 2. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillors Davies, Denya, Grant, Hussain, Jackson, O'Rourke, Mack, Massey, Hart and Dyer. Any more? It's quite a list already, isn't it? Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Please note that on the 11th of March 2024, a dispensation was agreed at the Values and Ethics Committee that would allow members who are landlords or private renters to participate in agenda item 9, Living Rent Commission. Can I ask members who are landlords or private renters, not council renters, to raise their hands so that their interest and dispensation can be noted? I think Oliver's taking a picture. There you go. So we've got it all on record. Are there any other interests to declare regarding the items on today's agenda?
Lord Mayor, I'd like to declare that I'm a member of Talbot Road Allotment Association. Thank you.
I believe that's a non-pecuniary interest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Sorry? Sorry, Tim, I didn't see you at the back there.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I wanted to just check because we received an email from the Deputy Monitoring Officer yesterday regarding pecuniary interests. In it, she said that relief had been given to renters and landlords, but specifically said not to owners. I believe what she meant to say is that that's because we did not have a pecuniary interest, but her email left me in some doubt. So could we just double check that there is not a pecuniary interest by simply owning a house in the city of Bristol when we come to the Renters Charter? Thanks.
I've just been told that is correct, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Alexander.
Allotment site rep, Lord Mayor.
Okay, again, a non-pecuniary interest? Thank you. Anybody else? Have I missed? Thank you. Okay, so moving on again to agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meeting of full council held on the 28th of February 2024 be agreed as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can I take it that the minutes are agreed? Blimey, if you're that enthusiastic at this stage of the meeting, what are you going to be like at 9:30? Thank you. Anyway, the minutes are agreed. Okay, so agenda item 5, Lord Mayor's business. As some of you may have noticed, this is our last full council meeting for this municipal year, and there is an election coming up. I would like to thank all members, seriously, for their hard work over this term, serving the people of Bristol, and in some people's cases, many, many terms. I wish good luck to members standing again, and all the best to those that will be leaving us. And this is my last full council meeting, so it's either the end of an era or the end of an era, and I'll leave you to decide that one. But thank you very much. So, moving swiftly on to agenda item 6, public forum. 30 minutes will be allowed for this item, which is split into 15 minutes for petitions and statements and 15 minutes for questions. Details of the petitions, statements and questions received have been published on our website. I'll go through the list, calling on those that have indicated they plan to attend this meeting. Speakers are asked to pay attention to the traffic lights on the dais and to start to wrap up when the lights turn to amber. When they go to red, please stop. There was one public forum petition received for this meeting, and there were a total of 39 public statements received. A list will be displayed on the screen. 8 members of the public indicated that they plan to attend and speak to their statements. They are displayed on the screen, and we will run through these statements in order. I'll invite each person to speak for just 1 minute. Please try not to just read out your statement. The statements have been published. Just add anything extra you want to say tonight. They were published for councillors, the mayor and the public to read in advance of the meeting. So first, do we have Nico Scarlett? Thank you. We'll get a microphone to you. Thank you, Nico. You've got 1 minute.
Hi, so there has been a bus stop on Stapleton Road in Easton that's been broken for at least a year, and therefore the residents and the visitors of Easton don't have accessible seating for transportation. People are either having to stand for periods of time that they won't be able to do otherwise, sit on the cold metal base under what would be a bus seat, sit on the floor or not access the buses whatsoever. I have seen this happen many times and it is appalling. Easton has a particularly high concentration of elderly people due to intergenerational living in homes. And it's sad seeing them not being able to sit on anything that is comfortable. I reported this issue back in March 2023 and I have been ignored by departments within the council. I feel like myself and the residents of Easton are being neglected, and I think this is an issue that we have felt for a very long time. I've been in Bristol for 11 years.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you at that point. I was just double checking that a public petition only got 1 minute as well, but thank you for your contribution. I'll move on. I'll move on now to the public statements received, and the first person who has indicated they plan to be here is John Stansfield. Thank you. You've got a microphone. You've got a minute, please.
Hello. Will Bristol City Council being the UK's first European green capital and the first UK city to declare a climate emergency, on what basis are they refusing to sign the Plant-Based Treaty? with animal agriculture being responsible for 18 to 20% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. It's committed under its health and well-being strategy to improve the health of its citizens. Meat and dairy consumption is a known cause of cancers, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and the approaching syndrome of antibiotic resistance. They are also a direct source of dangerous zoonotic diseases. Fish are now widely contaminated with metals, plastics, and in the case of farm fish, antibiotics. These illnesses also impose a huge additional pressure on the NHS. The Council can't claim to be green when it is deaf to the vastly destructive effects of animal agriculture worldwide on wildlife habitats and ecosystems, both land and marine.
Thank you, John. I have to stop you at that point. You've had your minute now, but thank you for your contribution. Moving on now to public statement 12, Fiona Castle.
Thank you. I'm a parent of a child with special education needs and disabilities. I was appalled to find out that the safety valve programme was added to the agenda for the Cabinet meeting as a matter of urgency. I can't convey to you in 1 minute the level of concern I have that not only our Bristol City Council considering the safety valve agreement, but also that it was passed in such a short-sighted and underhand manner. I've read the information that's been given to the Council today, and although you do mention the Constitution, you don't actually say why urgent special provision was required. The Council entered into negotiations in July last year, and other councils that entered into negotiations at the same time published information about their agreements, and I strongly suspect that the Council has chosen not to do that because of the amount of opposition that other councils are facing for the safety valve programme. Bristol City Council spent years voting its own children, and those who they serve to support and educate have now used, in my opinion, undemocratic and unnecessary methods to hide the fact that for SEND children and families in Bristol, life is about to get a whole lot harder. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Moving on to public statement 22, Hilda Bernardson. Thank you. When we get the microphone to you, you will have a minute to speak. Thank you.
My name is Hilda, and I'm representing the Bristol Fair Renting Campaign. Our city faces a rent crisis. More and more of our communities are being made homeless by soaring rents. Families and individuals are being driven into poverty or forced out of the city. The findings of the Living Rent Commission have only underscored what we already know. We urgently need rent controls. Today, we urge the Council to recognise the severity of the situation and act now. The renters of Bristol need to know that you are listening to us ahead of the upcoming local election. Councillors, will you make concrete commitments to rent controls in your manifestos? Mayor Marvin Rees, will you use your voice and join other mayors across the country in speaking out on the urgent need for power to freeze rents now? Will you use your remaining time and power as mayor to do everything you can to stand up for renters? Let's make rent controls a reality in Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. I'm going to go back because I've been told somebody else that we didn't know was going to be here is here, and that's David Redwell, public statement number 5.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Switch the mic.
Hello, thank you, Mayor. So my comments about the West England Mineral Combined Authority, it brings me no pleasure to say the government's put the West England Combined Authority in special measures. But the bus service deterioration is getting worse. Although we've got Lucky Ashton Vale and Albury Court have their bus services back, we've got great deserts of no bus services outside Bristol, from Brisbane all the way through your own patch to Parkcliffe. We're now about to lose the only bus, Mayor Rees, from Avonmouth through Lawrence West, the poorest parts of the city, through to Henbury and onto Cribbs Causeway from the end. Even though the chair of the Western Gateway and our transport executive lives in that patch. They've really got to get this authority under control. They keep telling me that they're going to leave things down to the first group, but that's not how it's supposed to work. They're supposed to be the authority to regulate the bus services, the local rail services, and like rail in the future, mass transit. This authority really needs urgent help and urgent discussion. I urge you really to make sure we get our bus services this city needs and make sure we bring back the public transport the people at Bristol voted for. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Public statement 23, Tim Beasley.
Yeah, mate. Hi, this statement was written by 14 community projects and groups on a lot of the sites across Bristol. Rather than bringing new opportunities for collective food growing, the allotted rent rises will be very damaging for our projects. They risk closing some of us down, either because our projects can no longer afford the cost of the rents, or because the extra administration required by the discount scheme. Even with the discount scheme, new rents will be huge. A community orchard's rent in East Bristol will double to over £600 a year, while Streetgoat, the collective urban farming project, will have to pay over £1,000 a year. Collectively, our projects bring huge benefits to the people of Bristol worth far more than the rent increases. A sense of community, mental and physical health benefits, connections to nature and locally grown food, and a lot of fruit and veg for free, with more distributed locally to other projects, kitchens and food banks. As so many local services are decimated by cuts, our projects offer a great space for those in need of support. Most projects get no funding from the council and we either ask for or need council support. The majority of the work we do is self-organised and unpaid through Don't Destroy List.
Thank you very much, Steve. Public statement 29, Katie Ladbrook. Are you here? No? Okay, public statement 31, Jai Bright Now. Okay. Public statement 39, Fiona Priest. Thank you, you have 1 minute.
The safety valve agreement is a trap. It's a trap because the targets can't be met while also abiding by Senate law. The safety valve targets are binding, but they don't trump Senate law, which tribunals will continue to enforce. Local authorities already lose most of their appeals to tribunals. The agreement does nothing to address the fundamental problems of a broken mainstream system, which is stripped to the bone. There are no teaching assistants, there's no specialist teachers. A lack of maintained specialist places within Bristol, which is why there are kids travelling miles to schools outside of Bristol. A healthcare system on its knees with waiting lists for diagnosis and support that are years long. Or an ingrained and pervasive habit of budget guarding by kicking the can down the road. The safety valve forgives some of the debt, but it doesn't fund the systemic reform needed to provide the large laudable aims of inclusion, early intervention and local school spaces in order to meet its targets. I recently described our 7-year journey to getting our child the support they need as screaming into the void while being gaslit and blamed. I wish that were an unusual experience. The agreement will not make this better. It will make it worse for families, but especially worse for the children and young people whose well-being and future are at stake.
Thank you, and I've got one more. PS14, I've been told Danica Priest is here. Thank you, Danica, you will have 1 minute.
No West is in dire need of more youth services, so we need to get Eagle House back to the community. It's not good enough to point to the youth zone, which is on the other side of the board and hasn't even been built yet, and say we're throwing all of our money there, so there's nothing else that can be done. The residents have been doing so much hard work for their community, and we should be celebrating their efforts, not silencing them. They tried more than the council for years, and nighttime was a problem, and that local youth needed a place where they can feel safe, they were sadly ignored. Actions speak louder than words, but for far too long, all this community has had is words. We now need real action. The current administration has been shown clear, undeniable evidence that the terms of the lease have been broken. It's time to end the excuses and give Eagle House back to the community now. I fully stand behind the residents' campaign and will fight with them until Eagle House is youth center again. Thank you.
Thank you, Danica. We'll now move to the public questions received. The questions received have been published on the website and are shared on the screen now. 19 questions were received from members of the public, and 6 of those have indicated that they wished to attend. We will try to cover as many questions as possible in the 15 minutes available. It may not be possible for everyone to speak, so we ask for your patience as we run through the questions in order. When I call on you, please read your question out and we will try and show the question on the screen. The Mayor will then reply verbally. Following the response from the Mayor, you will be invited to ask a supplementary question. So the first person I have is Agnes. If you ask your question of the Mayor.
Hi. Is on? No.
Oh, hello. I am deeply concerned about the climate crisis and the huge role advertising can play in this. The Advertise for Mission report that was launched at COP26 in 2021 found that advertising ads, on average, add an extra 28% to the annual carbon footprint of every single person in the UK. Council has stated a goal that by 2030, people in Bristol will consume carbon-neutral food and drink. It seems important that decisions about advertising within our city are made in such a way to promote environmentally sensitive ways of eating. I know Council has already brought an advertising policy that bans certain harmful ads. My question is, if meat and dairy products are known to have such a high carbon footprint, why are adverts for these products not included within this policy?
It does restrict the location of some ads that we think might encourage unhealthy food choices, such as near some of our schools. Our challenge is that there's no accepted legal definition for a high carbon product advertisement. So for us as an authority, it makes it very difficult to build a coherent and defensible policy around it. But I think what I would say is if you have tools that would enable the definition of such advertising and how it could be implemented at local government level, then we'd be really pleased to hear from you. And you could suggest it certainly through the Economy Board, through the Environment Board, and obviously directly to my office. I think I would just add as well, the comment was made earlier on about how we would claim to be a green council. I don't think we generally do run around trying to win labels for the city. We do things and then we get acknowledged for it, but we don't set out to be a green council. What we set out to do is do good policy. And again, in terms of what we've done, as I've repeated today over on to members, the work we've done to put us on course to receive £1 billion worth of investment to decarbonise our energy system is the kind of things that local authorities right across the UK and also around the world now, are looking at. I'm not saying it's everything, but I am saying that we're on the front end of doing this serious work, not just gimmicks and slogans, but this serious work of decarbonising the way that the city region economy actually works.
Thank you. Agnes, do you have a supplementary question?
Not this time, no.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Hilary Saunders' question on the Quaker burial ground.
The Quaker burial ground, known as the Hermit's Cave, was given to the council in the 19th...
I don't think you might. Sorry. Can we have a fiddle with that?
Was I not holding it?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit closer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
The Quaker burial ground, known as the Hermit's Cave,
was given to the council in the 1950s with the assurance that it would be cared for and respected. There are plans to make it a peaceful memorial space for refugees, but I am appalled to find that this sacred heritage site is intended to become a builder's What can you do to stop the potential desecration of a sacred space of historical importance? And my second question is, how well do you feel this sits with the council's application to be re-accredited as a city of sanctuary?
Thank you.
Our City of Sanctuary accreditation is, obviously this is an issue, and I'll come to it in a second, but our accreditation as City of Sanctuary really revolves around the welcome we've given to people seeking asylum and resettlement. That's in housing, mental health support, also community support. In the hall next door, every time over the last few years, we've received another. We've obviously had concentrations of people come from specific parts of the world, be it Afghan, Syrian, Hong Kong, Ukrainian. We've actually welcomed people into this building and told them that you are a welcome member of this city. I mean, I grew up in Bristol, and I know what it's like to be in a place and not feel like it's your place. I mean, this was, it was not uncommon for me to be told to go back to my country when I was growing up here as a kid. I was born at Southmead Hospital. So we've set out to make sure this is a welcoming place. And the work we've done with Woodlands Church, University of Bristol, International Students as well, that's why we get our accreditation. But having said that, we haven't agreed to the use of the burial ground, the Quaker burial ground, as a building compound. And actually, our planning officers have been working very assertively to encourage the developer to revise the proposal and to find a suitable phasing plan for development that excludes use of the burial ground. And as you note in your written question to me, a phasing plan for the Redcliffe Wharf development was submitted as part of the conditions discharge process that includes the use of the Quaker burial ground for the phase 2 compound area. But our officers have actually advised the developer that we did not consider this to be suitable and that alternative arrangements should be brought forward. We have had positive discussions with them and between developers and our planning officers, and we have now actually received revised details excluding the use of the Quaker burial ground that we can now formally consider.
Thank you. We'll move now to Fiona Castle. Question 9, our safety valve.
In the paperwork submitted to the Cabinet meeting last week and subsequent comments by the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, it was stated that Bristol's joining of the Government Safety Valve Programme had to remain secret up till then by order of the Department for Education. Given that other LAs who have been invited to join the programme at the same time as Bristol have shared information with the public, can the Council confirm if the other LAs are in violation of the DfE embargo, or if in fact Bristol has chosen to hide this negotiation from the public?
Thank you.
I can't comment on what the LAs have done, and that would be for DfE to talk about. That would be for other local authorities to talk with the DfE about, for DfE to draw their conclusions. What I can say is in August 2023, DfE confirmed that safety valve negotiations could not be made public, and the terms of any negotiated agreement were to remain confidential until published by the DfE themselves, and they've reiterated that to us since. Our job is to work with the DfE and let the DfE work with other local authorities.
You have a second question, Fiona?
I have a supplementary question. While the actual financial part of the agreement had to remain secret, the fact that you were in negotiations for safety valve, didn't the Department for Education have said that as of the last week, that councils are free to choose to publicise this how they choose to? Why did you not want to publicise this?
Yeah, that's not the case. That wasn't the direction we had from DfE. It was on negotiations had to remain between us and them until they published it. If they've changed their position since then, if you have insight into another position, then we're glad to hear about it, but the direction to us was it has to remain confidential.
Thank you. Moving back to David Reschman.
Can I ask my second question?
Yeah, you've had 2 questions now. Thank you. My apologies, sorry. Yes, you can.
Thank you. Given that the Safety Belt programme is going to require the LA to make significant year-on-year savings to its STEM budget, that it was not up till now able to achieve in the last few financial years, how can the LA assure parent carers that these savings will not come at the expense of their children's statutory rights to provision, as detailed in the Children and Families Act 2014 and the same Code of Practice 2015?
I mean, all we can do is assure people, certainly from the political leadership and from the office perspective, that we have every intention of fulfilling our statutory obligations under both the 2014 and 2015 acts that you cite. But I would just put this in context that local authorities' abilities to meet their statutory responsibilities all across this country are under pressure because of the financial situation they are in. And this safety valve is an incredibly important financial intervention in a situation that we and other local authorities wish they weren't in, but are in, and need this financial intervention to get us through. The alternative to not having this financial intervention is huge pressure, further pressure on local authority budgets, and as I've repeated many times, we can no longer live in a world in which we think that it is not possible for a local authority to go bankrupt. And we have, amongst the recent spate of 114s, we've had 2 major core cities, Birmingham and Nottingham. The consequences of them not being able to balance their budget have been absolutely horrendous for the people in those cities. And in Birmingham, council tax has gone up 21% in the face of lots of cuts. So our responsibility to bring home a balanced budget and take every opportunity we can and draw on every resource we can to make sure we have a balanced budget while fulfilling our statutory responsibilities is what we must do.
Thank you. Would you like to ask another supplementary on your second question?
Okay.
Thank you, Fiona. Moving then to David Redwell on question PQ7 on bus services.
Yeah, so my question is simple. My question is simple. The West England Mural Combined Authority, the Transport Authority, Power for Transport, and this authority, South Gloucester and Baines to that authority. So I'd like to know really what discussions have taken place between this authority, Workers in Special Measures, Mayor East and Don Alexander, and the West England Combined Authority and First Group on cuts to services, including Service 3 across North Bristol, but also the fact that we just don't have bus service in the Stapleton area and Brislington area. So really, are we in negotiations, or really are we just having discussions and making no progress? And that's a real serious issue to passengers, voters and taxpayers in Bristol.
Dave, you're an important watcher and challenger to the Combined Authority, and we really appreciate that. I mean, firstly, I'd say that we, as an authority, made a massive gesture towards the Combined Authority, and that was about the transfer of our transport assets over, our team over, to what is the Strategic Transport Authority. And I mean, there was noise in this chamber as well, which was a move that you would agree, I think at the time, was the right move to make. In the end, we made the offer, it wasn't taken. And so having the resource in the right place for that strategic leadership didn't ever fulfill itself. So that leaves us a bit disadvantaged, and that was a problem. I think that we do struggle with our negotiations within the Combined Authority. there are things that we've really wanted it to drive in and deliver on, not just recently, but since the beginning, that it has not delivered for us in a way that we would hope and wish. And that leaves us with a fragility, not in housing, but also in transport, in our transport offering as well, that we're seeing evidenced in the loss, of these routes. And I've shared in those meetings, and you'd have heard me say several times, we didn't set up the combined authority just to have another political structure. We set it up because the Secretary of State at the time was saying, if you set up a combined authority, you will get more money and you'll get more power and influence. What we wanted to see is the evidence of that money and the evidence of that power and influence coming down, evidenced in real services, in our part of the world. I would just add to as well, it's not just working with the WECA body itself, it's working with our neighbours. And one of the challenges that we face as a city in a combined authority area that is dominated by rural authorities in terms of equal share votes is the specific city interests. And we do have a debate that's going on at the moment about to what extent is any support for bus services going to focus on linking up villages and small settlements in Baines and South Gloucestershire, and what extent are they going to be focused on meeting the transport poverty needs in the urban centre, of the region. And that's something that we need to bottom out in the combined authority. I think as the economic driver and the economic hub, and seen as the combined authority is about economic growth, it should be about focusing on the city, but it needs to be both and as well.
My supplementary is a simple one. I met with Doug Herringbone for 2 hours and came up with some ideas about an enhanced public partnership which allows us to put some of these routes back. With the Chief Executive of Bristol and the Mayor and Don, take up an offer of meeting Stagecoach and First Group with a view to seeing what ideas can be put forward from Bristol City Council to the combined authority.
But we'll always take the suggestions and ideas, and that's why we've set up the Transport Board as well, very early doors. It's not just about council officers talking to council officers, but the Transport Board that we set up under the City Office has people from a whole range of backgrounds in there to come up with the best ideas. I mean, I would just, on a broader scope as well, Dave, what we have had for decades is a fragile public transport offering. I'm going to go back to it. What we need is a chapter change in the way we offer mass transit, and that includes a mass transit system with elements of underground in the densest parts of the city. We've had support from the National Infrastructure Commission saying that we are one of 4 cities that should share in the £20 billion pot to deliver mass transit. So even outside of Bristol, they're recognising the needs, the transport needs, and they have an ambition for Bristol that unfortunately is not being matched within Bristol or within the Bristol City region. That is the kind of lack of ambition that will undermine our ability to secure the scale of investment that would offer us a solution, a long-term solution on the city's transport needs.
David, do you have a second question, or is that it? I'll take it, that is it.
Well, my only point was there is that I'm obviously being very pressurised by the people of Stapleton to find them a bus service. I would just ask that Mayor Rees and Councillor Alexander and Wetland look at that issue, please. Thank you.
I'm sure it will. Okay, we've got time for one more question. So I'm going to go to Richard Pawley, plant-based catering. Question 2.
Hello. So, pursuing Martin Rees's decarbonising statement, Bristol Good Food 2030 framework rightly points out that limited funding presents a major constraint for enabling Bristol's food system to align with the Council's stated goal of having the city become carbon neutral by 2030. The scientific evidence is starkly clear that reducing meat and dairy...
Richard, we do have your statement here. If you'd like to ask a question, we'll get you a response, because we haven't got much time.
Yeah, my question is, we recognise that transition to plant-based catering is an obvious move for reducing the climate impact of the city's food in a context of budgetary constraint, and the failure to do so will make achieving carbon neutrality in the city increasingly difficult.
It's still not really a question, is it?
I mean, if the council is responsive to the wishes of its people, would they not act upon this?
Well, the people is a very broad term. There's lots of people in Bristol, and you have one view. I guess if your definition of the people is yourself and you view, and me responding to what you want, then obviously...
the dominant party in Bristol, aren't they? So, Green Party, the dominant party.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And that brings us to the end of our half an hour. So, because of Ramadan, we're having a slightly early break for our councillors who haven't eaten today. So we will now adjourn for 15 minutes. Please can you come back at 5:02? Councillors, there have been 2 councillor petitions received for this meeting. Councillors are invited to speak for 1 minute. Marley, I believe you've got the first one.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. So my petition is calling for the restoration of bus services to Stapleton. And I'd like to start by thanking the community in Stapleton for how they've stood up together in commitment to try and restore bus service until was withdrawn. To recap, the buses through Stapleton were withdrawn during a period of driver shortage, not because the routes were unprofitable, but because companies were trying to safeguard drivers for routes that were more profitable. Since buses have been withdrawn through the neighbourhood, I've spoken to residents who, for a range of reasons, don't have access to a car, have mobility issues, find it difficult to get around, and have been really severely impacted. It's really important to restore bus service to that neighbourhood. So I know this is an ask of record, but I'd ask you, Marvin, as I understand you'll meet with Dan on Friday, to sort of relay that ask to him. To keep supporting the community in any way we can. It's not a huge amount of funding, I understand that's required to restore bus service. So anything we can do to keep up the pressure is really appreciated. Thank you.
I think I said, Marley, the WECA meeting Friday afternoon, I've just had some messages from Kevin Guy, actually, from Baines about it, so if I get the full range, we can include this in the list of continues to-dos that the combined authority needs to take on.
Thanks, Marvin. And both of you let me know, because apparently I'm on a boat with Dan on Sunday going around the harbour, so, quite a bit of persuasion if you're above water. Councillor Ali, you have a petition. You've got a minute to present, please.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank the residents in Parton Hill for signing this petition. As a resident in the area and a mother of young 2 twins, I have been campaigning on behalf of the residents of Morton Street and neighbouring streets to get pavement parking provision in place to make life safer for everyone using the roads. I understand that due to lack of parking, people are parking closer to Lawrence Hill train station and walking to the train or walking into town. Due to that reason, they are basically blocking the pavements and making it difficult for others to use the pavement and forcing residents to use the actual road. As of it now, one day someone would get hurt or even killed. I know outside of London, addressing pavement parking is primarily the responsibility of the police, as they have the legal powers to enforce the laws prohibiting pavement parking. The council has a limited power to enforce fines against pavement parking.
Sorry, Amal, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, sorry. But the Bristol City Council should urge the national government to give them a power to do this, basically.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 8. This is a petition debate. Objections to Bristol City Council changes to allotment rules and rent. This petition has reached the 3,500 signature threshold to qualify for a full council debate. 20 minutes is the maximum time allowed for this item. The petition organiser will be permitted up to 5 minutes to present the petition and its objectives. We will then proceed to the councillor debate. I will also ask the Mayor or relevant Cabinet member to respond at the end of the debate. As a reminder, this is not an interactive discussion involving the public. The issues raised in the petition and the comments of members during the debate will be referred to the Mayor and relevant Cabinet member for a response. The petition organiser is Holly Wyatt. May I ask Holly to present the petition? And you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to bring this petition for debate this evening and for the opportunity to present it to you. Following the launch of the Council's consultation back in December around proposed allotment rule changes, rent increases and additional fees, I set up an online petition to raise awareness. The petition quickly gained traction and soon comments started appearing from fellow plot holders, highlighting the enormous mental health benefits of allotments and the potentially devastating impact on our city's wildlife, ecology and environment. People highlighted the need for allotments to remain accessible for everyone and spoke their concerns around how they will continue to afford the plots that they have not only come to love, but also to rely on as part of their food supply. Following the consultation feedback, I'm pleased to say that Ellie King released an open letter confirming changes to the tenancy rules and additional charges that would not be taken forward in their current format to allow a more collaborative process with representation from stakeholders. This felt like a positive move, but disappointingly, the Council, listening to the feedback from their own consultation, did not extend to the strong opinions put forward by respondents around the allotment rent increases. These rent increases range anywhere from 7% to an enormous 492%, depending on individual plot size, and 78% of respondents to the Council's consultation either disagreed or strongly disagreed with these rent increases. I hope you don't mind me quoting this back to you, Ellie, but at last week's Cabinet meeting you stated in relation to these rent increases that in reality a lot of these are the price of a coffee a week. These shouldn't be the barriers that you're suggesting they are. However, I really want to impress upon you that for low-income households such as ours, a takeaway coffee a week is a luxury that is already beyond our finances. These increases would come out of far more mundane items such as food, fuel or heating, and for us certainly would not constitute such rent as the tenant may reasonably be expected to pay, as stated in the Allotments Act of 1950. We've been told that our allotments run at a deficit and subsidised by other avenues, but it's unclear which figures have been used to arrive at this conclusion. The income and expenditure figures for the financial year 2021 to 2022 show a deficit of only £5,412, which certainly doesn't point towards allotments being hugely subsidised. In that same financial year, the expenditure on buildings and infrastructure came in at just over £33,000, with this expenditure item also never having exceeded £68,000 in a single year in the 4 preceding financial years. However, in the decision pathway report submitted to Cabinet last week, the estimated expenditure for the same item leapt to £301,000 as a projected figure for the year 2024 to 2025. Repeated requests for further information from the Council around this figure have only returned the answer that these figures are not available, and yet despite their unavailability, they have somehow formed the cornerstone of the supposed need for the scale of these rent increases. As a reflection of the strength of feeling around these rent increases, our petition has now received in excess of 6,500 signatures, with 3,965 confirmed as being from Bristol residents at time of submission to Democratic Services. One of the core demands of this petition is that access to space to grow your own food should be for everyone, and not the reserve of more affluent households. But mitigations such as the enablement for tenants to pay their rents both monthly and quarterly, as well as annually, do not go far enough to ensure this. Even with the extension of the eligibility of a 50% rent reduction, as someone who has previously benefited from the existing rent reduction scheme, I feel it's imperative to note that in many instances, the reduced rent prices under this scheme will still be higher than the current full price rates. There is also little to address the pressure these increases will put on community groups and projects, many of whom have been vocal about the risk of closure they will face under these plans. I firmly believe that the complete lack of movement over the size of these rent increases will change the dynamics and accessibility of our city's allotment sites dramatically. Our allotment sites are not gated communities, suggested at last week's Cabinet meeting. They provide produce to many beyond those who grow on them, and are places of community, where projects such as community orchards and farms flourish, and offer opportunities for people of all ages, economic backgrounds, nationalities, genders, sexualities and beliefs to come together. Our allotment sites are a phenomenal asset to our city, contributing positively to our climate and supporting an absolutely enormous array of native wildlife, which are increasingly under threat in our modern world. These amazing benefits are not even provided to our city for free. We, as allotment holders, actually pay for the privilege of providing them. And despite these rent increases, steering our thriving, vibrant allotment sites towards being financially for the few, I want to urge all of you here to do everything you can to ensure that they always remain for the many. Thank you.
Thank you, Ollie, and almost perfect timing, 5 minutes and 1 second. Can't say fairer than that. I'd like now to call on Councillor Martin Fodor to speak on behalf of the Green Group, and you have 3 minutes, Martin.
Thanks very much, Lord Mayor. I'd firstly like to thank Holly and her colleagues for ensuring this debate on Labour's proposed changes. This service has too long been hidden from you and the hard-working allotments team too. All the signatures you've gathered is really impressive, and the 3,500 responses to the controversial consultation as well. You've forced a rollback of proposals by the outgoing mayor, but his cabinet still made the decision on rent increases, as he said. Let's remember why we do have allotments. The enclosures of common land meant workers' access to space to grow food had to be protected. This remains true today as more and more spaces are privatised. There are no more gated communities than places like a closed block of council flats or tennis courts with a subscription. They're an essential service with those multiple benefits you mentioned: food, exercise, fresh air, time in nature, space for recreation, reflection, renewal, learning about living things, green spaces, corridors for wildlife, etc. Volunteering and building communities of interest in the gardens as well. But the service budget has been shrinking. The decision to freeze rents for many years was short-sighted and broke the Cabinet's own decision a few years ago to raise the charges in steps. This has set back the chance to rebuild the service. When the consultation blew up, I made sure the proposals then came to the Community Scrutiny Commission I chair with a detailed paper so we and the users could study and comment on that. Exposing the budget shortfall hidden inside the park service was a bit of a shock, I must admit, especially when we thought council fees and charges were all looked at years ago to review the fees being charged. Evidently not. The invention of new but unfunded 15-year capital programme needs a proper look in that budget that was published. What works are planned? What repair and maintenance? The sites, the water supplies. And the strange and uneven way the rents are now being charged and raised, and who this impacts as well, as you've said, has impacts. Finding the service barely able to cope is worrying. We need a proper stakeholder process to repair trust and foster constructive relations with allotmenters and community gardens. These ill-considered new rules and charges certainly need revisiting in a collaborative way. Creating the alarm, the ill feeling, the panic about the new rules for site reps where they exist, and the launching such an ill-judged consultation is a lesson for everyone. The lack of adequate project information or equalities impact assessment, and a consultation report that doesn't, as you say, seem to have taken account of the rent increase responses won't be forgotten. Finally, we shall have to pick up the pieces after May elections when the new cross-party committees are formed and they get a chance to sit around the table with stakeholders. That's why we've also called in this decision to revisit the process that was so flawed. I do hope you, as allotmenters and all the community gardens and interested people, are willing and able to join with us then, after May, to help develop a better future for allotments and community gardens. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I'd now like to call on Councillor Ellie King to speak on behalf of the Labour Group. You've also got 3 minutes. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you to the petitioners and to everyone who made the effort to be here today. We want our allotments to be the best they can, and that means bringing more empty plots into use, and more frequent preventative repairs with the programme and collective growing opportunities. However, the rents from allotments do not cover the cost of running the current service, let alone the service we all want to see. As a result, council taxpayers have to make up the shortfall and subsidise allotments. Money that needs to be spent on improving our public parks is instead spent on maintaining allotments. We collectively need to ask, is that sustainable or fair? Local government continues to bear the brunt of Tory austerity cuts. Councils are going bust, and we've had 65 pence in every pound cut from our budget in Bristol since 2012, which means councils have to find ways to make their services sustainable. Of course, any move to make our allotments sustainable needs to be done fairly, and we've listened to the results of consultation. It's worth noting that in the 2 scrutiny sessions on the topic and the budget itself, councillors did not put forward any other long-term solutions to fund our allotments. Opposing is one thing, but funding services with continued austerity is another. The increases are being staggered over several years. For the first time, there will be a 50% discount for anyone in receipt of universal credit and pension credit, as well as housing benefit. Even with the increases, the service will continue to be subsidised, and the suggestion that there is profit to be made is simply a fantasy. We're proud of our record encouraging urban food growing. We were the second UK city to be awarded gold standard for food sustainability. When working with our food partners in the city on the food equality strategy and Bristol Good Food 2030, we have big ambitions for food growing. We want to address disproportionality in our allotments and take positive action to ensure that allotment tiers reflect the diversity of our city. We want to create pilot plots of culturally appropriate produce to embrace, share, learn and celebrate the culturally diverse food heritage that we have as a city. We want to work to encourage greater participation in managing allotments for the benefit of nature and support allotmenteers who have not yet made that transition. I appreciate that many have. We want to grow models of surplus redistribution, getting fresh produce to those in need and to reduce food waste. A fantastic example is the wonderful Blaze Plant Nursery, which provides plug plants to allotments, schools and community gardens that grow and harvest food to support food insecurity. We want to bring new allotment sites to Hengrove and to 2 sites in Lockleys, and also grow our market garden culture and support a pipeline of diverse social entrepreneurs to provide good employment in Bristol's thriving food sector and bring local sustainable produce to more Bristolians. And we want our children and communities to eat good food and have the skills, opportunities and confidence to cook and try healthy, fresh produce. And increasing our community gardens, such as the fantastic example of Redcatch or Hillfields Community Garden in my own ward, bring opportunities to do so free of charge. There are so many incredible organisations working collectively in Bristol to achieve this, and their work is inspiring. And all this is to illustrate that partnership is key, and I look forward to the significant partnership role allotments can make in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Councillor Weston, you've got an unsurprising 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. First of all, congratulations to the allotments group for bringing the petition. Congratulations. It's very hard to get that number of signatures, so well done. I'll briefly cut my speech into 3 sections: fees, trees and rules. Almost rhymes. I couldn't work out how to get the third E's. On the fees issue, the reality is that the fees have been frozen for 6 years. And they probably should have risen gradually over that period, but it is where it is. The problem is, if it's been frozen for so long, I don't think you can unpick that over 1 or 2 or 3 years. It has to rise, yes, but it has to rise in manageable proportions. It doesn't put off people that actually do run the allotment service. Well, they do run it, to be honest, because you're the ones that grow the darn things, which I'm very grateful for. Now, I actually went and had a long meet with several community groups and several allotment tenants when this has all come out. And they all say the same thing. They all know there's a rise coming. But what they can't do is pocket that rise immediately in 1 or 2 years, as is suggested. So it does need to be spread out for it. And when it comes to trees, which you mentioned in the petition, but it wasn't quite... these rules are bonkers. I am sorry on this one. Each allotment, these are organic things. The allotments are living organisms. They have different conditions, different soil types, and sun, and rain, and water. There are some allotments in the city where you can only grow trees. There's one chap I spoke to, he's actually got an incline on his hill. He can only grow plum trees. He only gets sunlight for about 5 hours. That's the best thing that he can grow on it. It makes a sufficient and good use of pollination point of view for everyone else on it. We need to factor this in. It can't be a one-size-fits-all, as much as we might like. And on the rules, I know these are going to be looked at afterwards. I think the important thing here is we don't retrospectively apply changes in rules. If you have a greenhouse, it's a glass greenhouse, Yes, you might want us to take it and put a plastic one in, but wait for the greenhouse glass one to fail and then replace it. If you carried out an audit at the beginning, handed that audit to the allotment rep, who had a list of, I have a plastic pond, I have a glass greenhouse, when it comes time for that pond to fail, then switch it to rubber. You know, don't replace it like for like, but then that's how you make the change, without hitting the allotment holders with not just the rent increases, but also the additional costs that are going to come down the line when you have to do all this urgent modernisation very quickly. That just seems common sense. But also, this is sort of a lesson from my brother, who was in the military. Don't give an order you won't know won't be obeyed. If we give all these rules out, the allotment reps aren't going to enforce them. They're not going to turn into some sort of organic Stasi. I'm sure you're not. You wouldn't, right? But they're not going to go around there and start saying, oh, well, that looks rubber for me, not glass, we're going to send it off for testing. You know, this isn't going to work. We have to take them with us. So that means we need to have a collaborative approach, which I know Councillor King is committed to do. I will wrap me up on that. Committed to do. And so we need to have that conversation with the reps, with the allotment holders, with the city at large. And I welcome the petition. Well done. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. And I'd now like to ask Councillor Josh Clark to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Firstly, a big thank you to all the allotmenteers who took the time and effort to bring this petition to us today. I think there are a couple of issues that have been highlighted in the proposals and the consultation which we need to reflect on. But first, a bit of context from the Brislington West perspective. I'm lucky enough to be a member of the Talbot Road Allotment Association, as obviously I declared earlier. We have a lovely trading hut which is open through the season. We also have a community summer show which has a rather fabulous ukulele group to entertain us. I can only speak about Talbot Road, but for Ellie Councillor King to call allotments a gated community is incorrect. We have members using the shop from across the city. However, it is a reflection of the times we live in that allotments have to be secure, but that is out of necessity rather than a desire to be separate from our communities. To think that the council could have charged every time the trading hut was opened up just seems bizarre. The proposals themselves in brief made no sense and have only complicated the charging structure, which will make the whole process completely unwieldy and is frankly illogical. This has not been helped by the complete lack of clarity with the data provided by the council. Councillor King, having watched the cabinet meeting last week, to say that the weekly price increase is equivalent to the cost of a cup of coffee is missing the point and an insult to the allotment holders. Thank you. With respect to the consultation process, as it was rolled out, Councillor Varney and I were contacted by many local residents and attended a meeting to listen to their concerns. And as a result of issues raised, I wrote to the council with some specific questions on the 24th of January. On the 13th of February, I got a standard response back from Councillor King, which did not address any of the queries raised. And I suppose the final insult was when the allotment workshop was cancelled. Allotmenteers are not unreasonable people, and the message that Councillor Varney and I have heard loud and clear throughout this process has been, we agree that rents should go up with inflation, but don't leave it for years. Do it at regular intervals. They also said the charging process is going to become mind-bendingly complicated. In summary, the Labour administration should reflect on this consultation and learn that this has been a textbook example of how not to work with or communicate with local residents. Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins, would you like to speak on behalf of the Knowle Community Party?
Thank you, Lord. Sometimes when you see mistakes going out from an administration, you can actually understand how they got it wrong. This time, it just baffled me. I've never seen anything so incompetent go out from an administration on any subject. And I've been here a few years. You know, it really was staggeringly bad. And then we had the administration saying, well, you know, we're disappointed that went out, sort of to blame the officers. Well, you know, having done that job before, you take responsibility. You don't actually put it down to the officers making a mess of it, which undoubtedly there was a mess of there. I think as well as the actual amount of money involved, it was the total lack of understanding of what people have allotments for and how they operate. It just was staggeringly awful. And it really worries me now how we come back from this, because we've got a team that's there looking to implement this. We've had no indication at all that there'll be a really thorough re-examination, just a backing off for the moment. And that worries me a lot. I think the lack of detail in terms of the assertions on how much things are going to cost, I mean, having sat on the scrutiny commission and asked the questions, the answers just weren't there. I did see from some of the petitioners very cogent reasons how things could be improved, and they were very useful. And I think that actually having looked at the way the presentation was given by the service, I have a lot more confidence in the allotmenteers than I do in the service. And that is worrying. I think that we need now to give some time for this to actually be reflected upon, and hope that the allotmenteers will actually recognise an all-party approach to sorting out this problem in the new administration. Thank you.
That's the end of the debate. Mayor Rees, would you like to respond?
3 minutes. Okay. So I'll share a few things. Firstly, one of the things that now I've reflected on is how much of our political difference seems to come about because we seem to be talking about a different city. This is about housing conflicts, about some of the financial challenges we face Western Harbour. There is no alternative to a city with a finite land supply, a growing population, and a local authority that's been horrifically underfunded progressively over the last 14 years by national government. That is the reality. The reality is that city authorities across this country are filing for 114s of going bankrupt. 1 in 5 senior leaders in local government across this country anticipate bankruptcy in the next parliamentary period. So there is no alternative to that reality. The other truth is that money does go to subsidise the park. There may not be formal applications, but there is money that subsidises allotments from other parts of the council budget. That's not because we want it to be or we want it to feel bad. That is just the way it is. It comes out of parks. We do need a model of financing on allotments that is sustainable, and that does mean looking at the allotment fees as we've confirmed today. And we also want to invest in allotments. We've heard from people repeatedly that the quality of service provided to allotmenteers, not just dealing with vacant allotments or multiple ownership, but the backlog, the waiting list of 8,000 people needs to be addressed, and that takes council resources within a finite financial envelope. And it's also true that within the proposals, we've put in place measures to support people on low incomes as well, and we'll make sure people get support to fill those forms in. So that is a reality that we're grappling with. And let me make a couple of observations. One is, this chamber, councillors have variously described it over the last few meetings as theatre and performance, and it is. The problem is that we treat it like a pantomime, but this is about real life. We have a cabinet member here in administration that will talk to people if we're talking about solutions. Just like we teach our children, just like we talk to our friends. There are issues, let's have the conversation about it and solve it. But here, my warning is this, and I think it's something to bear in mind for the future, not just for local politics, but for national politics, when we see it as well. Be very careful of politicians who chase your grievances and then tell you everything you want to hear, right? Rather than politicians who will say to you, do you know what? I know you'd like to hear this, but you need to hear this, right? And we can clap them for saying what we want them to say all the time. But the important thing is that we very quickly come to terms with the very real financial situation that Bristol is in. If we just listen to people who say what we want to hear, we'll find ourselves coming up short quite horrifically in the future.
Thank you all. I now ask Council to note the issues raised in the petition together with the comments of members during the debate at this meeting. This matter will now be referred to the Mayor and relevant Cabinet member for consideration and to issue a response to the petition organiser. And thank you to the public for coming along and getting involved. So moving on to agenda item 9, we have the Living Rent Commission. This report is for noting, and I'd now like to call on Councillor Tom Renard to move the report as the relevant Cabinet member. And Tom, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm delighted to be able to introduce this report today. The Mayor's One City Living Rent Commission brought the best partnership-focused organisations together to explore the issues facing renters, including topics of rent controls and the state of conditions of the private rented sector. Having a safe and secure roof over our heads is key to ensuring we all have the best possible opportunity to live a happy and healthy life. But unfortunately, many renters still live in fear of spiralling costs, poor quality housing and unfair evictions. I rented for over a decade, and during that time I've experienced poor living conditions alongside the threats of a Section 21 no-fault eviction if I didn't pay that rent increase. It is a situation that no renter should ever be put in. There is a power imbalance between landlords and renters, and it puts renters at a significant disadvantage. The conclusions and recommendations that came out of the Commission, therefore, were not a surprise. The Commission concluded that private renting in Bristol faces serious access, affordability and security of tenure crisis, which is impacting the well-being and quality of life of people and playing a major role in creating homelessness. In fact, the 2 leading causes of homelessness in Bristol are the result of Section 21 no-fault evictions and those who are no longer able to be accommodated with family or friends. In total, the final report outlines 29 recommendations for both national and local government. These focus on improving tenants' experiences, standards and the accessibility of private renting. The Commission found there is substantial popular support for rent control to help make renting more affordable and has called on the Council to lobby central government for rent control powers. Currently, the Council does not possess these powers, but the work of the Commission will help shape the way the Council approaches future discussions with national government. And while we're there, we'll also make sure we make the case for having the funding and powers we need to scale up house building. This is what will address things in the longer term. We need the powers to introduce rent control devolved to us so that we can make decisions and implement a policy that is in the best interest of renters. Whether that be rent freezes, something more akin to the rent standard that governs social housing, or something that links to benefit levels or wages. We are working hard to make sure that people living in private rented accommodation have adequate protections and decent living standards. We will continue to take action to crack down on criminal landlords who do not meet the legal requirements for a safe and secure living environment. We've already made this council policy when the report was approved in Cabinet last year, and today it is here for noting, as already been said. Renters can rest assured that we will continue to back the work of the Living Rent Commission, campaign for the powers we need to build a better private rented sector in Bristol, and push for the implementation of renters reform in the dying days of this broken Tory government of austerity. If they don't get renters reform over the line, then the National Labour government will, following the next general election. Thank you.
Thank you. And now from one Tom to another. Councillor Hathaway, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Start with a big thanks to Professor Alex Marsh for putting together the Living Rent Commission report, and to all the commissioners and officers who contributed their time and efforts to it. It's an excellent piece of work that's been done, bringing together a range of voices from across the private rented sector and the wider city, albeit with some notable exceptions to the table, such as the Tenants' Union Acorn. This piece of work neatly brings together what we all know. For over 134,000 Bristolians, renting privately is often precarious and almost always expensive. rents are spiralling, increasing 12.9% annually on average. The report makes clear there's widespread appetite for an intervention that stabilises rents to protect tenants, yes, rent controls. This is overwhelming amongst almost all groups surveyed, except predictably landlords, though even 40% of those responding have some favourability towards introducing such measures. Rent controls are not new and they're not uncommon, with over a dozen countries in Europe alone using variations in their cities to stop the squeeze on families from rents, their biggest monthly outgoing. I urge those new to the idea or tempted to cherry pick a couple of cities to look up the work of the Centre for Housing Evidence, which delves into the spectrum of established rent controls, some of which we've heard about already. The report sets out 23 clear recommendations for the Council, and it's good to see some of these already underway. The task for the next administration will be ensuring these are fully seen through, including establishing a private rented sector strategy and reviewing how we engage with tenants and partner organisations to build trust and ensure people know their rights. Finally, it highlights that there's work to be done lobbying some party leaders in Westminster. We currently have the Tories unable to get through a long-promised reform bill and now sliding backwards on a commitment to no-fault evictions, to end no-fault evictions, and Keir Starmer, who won't commit to devolving rent control powers and still stands behind selling off social housing under right to buy. The DWP estimates that over £9 billion of housing support was paid to those on low incomes in private rentals or directly to their landlords in 2021. We know we desperately need to build and retain affordable housing at one end and to stop spiralling private rents at the other end, to bring the housing market back under control and put pounds back in the pockets of ordinary people. Please can we have assurances from party leaders in Bristol today that they will be lobbying their colleagues in Westminster for recognition of that fact, as there's still a wide gap between policy and reality.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like now to call on Councillor Dutt to speak on behalf of that group. Kai?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd just like to thank the Commissioners as well for all the work they've done. And obviously Tom did most of the legwork on this, and the Commissioners, I came to the party quite late on this one. But I think the point I want to make is that we've not really been resting on our laurels in terms of waiting for paper to come here. In terms of the areas where we have got powers, we have been taking action and delivering on our manifesto commitment as well around extending landlord licensing and property licensing. So we've expanded licensing requirements for HMO citywide, and that went to Cabinet in February, and also to certain properties, certain wards where there's a high level of renting, so Bishopston and Ashley Down, Cossam and the East, where we've expanded the scheme. So there's two types of schemes that we've expanded. So it's the additional HMO licensing, so that's a house or flat that is occupied by 3 or 4 unrelated people who share some facilities. And the selective licensing in the wards that I talked about there are properties occupied by 1 or 2 tenants. That can be a family, but not HMOs. We want to make sure that tenants live in safe and secure properties across the city that live up to the regulations that we expect. And actually, the original licensing scheme, if you look at the results of that, because often some landlords say, well, it's just a tax on us, it's just a way of raising revenue. Actually, the original scheme that's been operating so far has delivered a lot of results. So 9,000 licences were issued across the city. And of the 9,000, 6,000 properties were improved as a result of that licensing scheme. So it does work. It's not just, as some landlords would say, a tax on their activity. So in total, the mandatory HMO licensing will cover approximately 3,100 properties in the city. The additional HMO licensing will cover 8,100, and the selective scheme that I talked about, including the new wards, will cover 8,500 properties. So a massive increase on the private rented sector. So we're going as far as we can with the powers that we've got locally. If we wanted to go further, we would have to get permission from the government. So given what we've just heard about the Renters Reform Bill, I don't think we'll have much joy there. So we're doing what we can locally. In terms of rent controls, I think it's important that we have a properly well-researched, well-thought-out policy. So that's why we're working with Policy Bristol, with academic experts in this area, legal experts, but also the campaign groups, council officers, and also politicians to come up with a proper model that stands up to scrutiny in terms of what that model should look like in Bristol. So yeah, I think it's a good report. So I think we should note that. We're not voting for it or against it, are we? We're noting it, so I think we should all note it.
Thank you, Councillor Weston, on behalf of the Tory Group.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. We're noting our request to note it, so all good and clear there. It's funny, for a while I was sort of wondering if we were all reading the same report. We went very hard on rent controls. I think it's only mentioned once, actually, in the report. Oh, it's a few times. I must have missed the others. The thing is, when we talk about rent controls, instead of when we talk about affordable housing, actually it covers all manner of different methods and different schemes and interpretations and versions. When we talk about rent controls, if done badly, it is really detrimental to housing stock and improvements. And actually, although it may help people that come into the rental sector, it actually can be, those who are already in it, it really puts off those people coming in, the new renters. It really hurts them. If you're talking about forms of regulation, about how you can bring it in to try and improve standards, then there is a place for that. There absolutely is. And I would share that. I think one of the problems is we need to make sure we have a well-regulated private rental sector. Not over-regulated, it has to be well-regulated. Because all it takes is a few rogue landlords, and the whole sector is tarnished with it, even when you've got landlords who are actually trying to do the decent thing. And we can take steps and lessons out of what we see in some of the continental European countries. You go to Germany, half the population live in rental properties, where in Britain it's about 17%. So there's a whole, they were built a whole legislative system about how to support tenants. So I would actually go with that. I spent 16 years renting, so I fully know the short-term tenancy, that quiver you get in your guts, which is quite substantial in my regard. When you're wondering what's going to happen at the end of the month, is it going to renew, are you going to roll over, are you going to be evicted? So I actually always favoured the 3-year rental model, so we actually had some long-term stability. And this is going to be particularly important. We're talking about certain areas of the city, like the city centre, where it used to be that people moved in, they were there for a couple of years, and then sort of had families move out to the suburbs. Well, they're not anymore. They're staying in the city centre, but the whole housing market in the city centre is built around a rental model that isn't reflected in the legislation. So I do actually support the report. Not every factor of it. I'm particularly favoured, by the way, of point 5 on page 39. I like a report that involves a good tax cut. Thank you very much. I don't know how you managed to get that through, but you supported it too, so I'm very proud of both of you. There is a lot of good work. I think we favour some of the sections more than others, but on the whole, there's a lot of good work gone into it. And I agree with the licensing that's come in on HMO. I think that is good. We might need to roll that out further if the university continues to expand, because otherwise we will start to see community displacement as it all cascades out. But there's some good work done on that. Overall, very happy. If we're going to bring in rent controls, though, as I'm noting in the report, will have to be properly researched. Because if we bring it in badly, it will go horribly wrong. And there are examples, I won't cherry pick them, as advised, but there are examples where rent controls have been in and it's decimated the housing stock. And it's been detrimental to everybody, even those who are trying to help. So I look forward to that report, but duly noted on your report, Councillor Jones. Councillor Ryan. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
I'd like to now call on Councillor Sarah Classic to respond on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. First, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Commissioners and to the Living Rent Commission for this report. I, like many people in this chamber who are now allowed to be here thanks to the dispensation, am a private renter in the city. I'm a bit nervous about saying this because a couple of years ago I made a speech and I talked about the instability in private renting and how a number of my colleagues had faced their homes being sold, and about 3 months later I got the dreaded letter through the door that my home of 6.5 years was being sold. So I am always worried about making this speech again. But I rise today to congratulate this report and praise the work of the Living Rent Commission. The report recommendations represent a comprehensive effort to address the challenges that are faced by many renters in the city, and it's imperative that we acknowledge and applaud the dedication and hard work put forth by all involved. There are some key aspects highlighted in this report. The statistics presented paint a vivid picture of the housing landscape in Bristol. With over 134,000 people privately renting, comprising almost one-third of the city's population, it's evident that the private rented sector plays a role in meeting the housing needs of our residents. However, alongside this increasing demand comes a myriad of challenges in affordability, quality and access issues that have become prevalent, exacerbating the strain on social housing stock and leading to a staggering 52% rise in rents over the past decade, which far outpaces the wage growth. But amidst these challenges, there is some hope in this report. This Commission has undertaken the monumental task of dissecting these issues and formulating recommendations that address them. We are pleased to see a comprehensive list of recommendations, 23 specifically directed towards this council, and these recommendations encompass a wide range of initiatives aimed at improving our housing conditions, combating discrimination and ensuring fair and affordable access to rental properties. And it's heartening to see that many of these recommendations are already being actioned by the council. Things like improving housing conditions through enforcement interventions, advocating for more funding for social housing at the national level. I'm glad to see that steps are being taken to alleviate the burdens faced by renters in our cities. And the impact of these initiatives extends far beyond mere statistics. By enhancing affordability, access and quality within our private rental sector, we're not only ensuring the well-being of our residents, but also fostering a more inclusive and vibrant community, empowering renters with better support and information on their rights and responsibilities, as well as advocating for more funding for social housing and tangible steps towards creating a city where everyone can thrive. It's crucial to acknowledge potential risks with these recommendations, and it underscores the importance of careful consideration and management during implementation to mitigate any adverse effects on our housing stability and homelessness services. In conclusion, this report recommendations represent some hope for renters in the city, and as we move forward, let us continue to champion these initiatives, working collaboratively to create a city where everyone has access to safe, affordable and high-quality housing. Together we can build a brighter future for all residents of Bristol.
Thank you, Sarah. Gary, would you like to speak on behalf of our community party?
Briefly. Yes. The first thing is that supply and demand plays a large part here. In this city, we have less houses than are needed. That allows people who wish to maximise their profit to push up the rents. Now, when we look faced with that situation, it is not sensible, therefore, to try and stop building that's going to be in the right place and provide the right service and the right opportunities. We really must be responsible on that side of it. With regard to licensing, yes, we welcome that. And in actual fact, having spoken to a few responsible landlords, I think that some of them would actually welcome the regulations going further and actually insisting on quality standards in HMOs that aren't there necessarily now. And those are coming from landlords who can make a perfectly good living without exploiting their tenants. So really, I think that when we form the new administration together, that we actually look at that aspect. It is difficult for us to keep rents down when you're in a position of an imbalance of power, which is there. We can advise, we can try and assist, but we cannot hold the seat back. This that's Canute. And basically, it's really something that we should try on, but providing more housing opportunities is a key way forward in this city.
Thank you, Gary. Mayor Rees, you have 3 minutes to respond if you'd like.
Sure, thanks very much, Lord Mayor. And first, I just want to congratulate Tom for leading this piece of work. It's absolutely excellent. And spoken to the challenges of our time. And we have stressed repeatedly with this administration that housing is a crisis situation, and delivering affordable homes in settled communities that are warm and offer people a platform for life is the single most significant policy intervention we can make in making this an inclusive, just city. And by the way, I would also add, Lord Mayor, that the right kind of homes in the right places are essential to building resource use out of the city's future. Secondly, I just congratulate Tom for the way this work has been done. It's inclusive, it's incredible. This is a living example of the One City approach. It's not just council officers, it takes it outside of the political hoo-ha. It's bringing in expertise from the University of Bristol or higher education institutions. It had campaign groups, tenants representatives as well, and we need people from who are involved in lettings as well, and that was incredibly important to have everyone together to make sure we end up with a fully informed, evidence-based piece of work. But having said that, very positively, there were two challenges I just have to lay out. One, I've heard that as one of the Green councillors said they support the work. And I don't think we've ever had an adequate explanation of why, if the work of the living rent is being supported, one of your colleagues organised for the first meeting to be stormed, interrupted by protesters, to be stopped, to have those protesters flood past our security on the front gate under the leadership of one of your councillor colleagues. It was outrageous. It led to some of our members of staff who ended up in the firing line of the social media campaign that followed it, being quite emotionally upset. I know some of the members of staff who are involved still haven't received an apology. I understand a bottle of alcohol was sent to one of the security on the front desk, totally culturally inappropriately, as a way of a soft apology. I think it was appalling behaviour and not in line with the collaboration that you continually champion or claim. I would also add that this housing crisis we are in is about looking at what we do in the rental sector, the private rental sector. It's also fundamentally about delivering homes. And we have shared with you repeatedly that you seem to support every progressive policy in principle, but never in practice. We have had a repeated practice of opposing housing delivery, whether it be on the zoo site, in Redland, Baltic Wharf, a failure to support Western Harbour. We cannot claim to be sincere about the need to tackle Bristol's housing crisis if you are not supporting the delivery of homes in general and affordable homes in particular. At some point, your practices have to line up with your declared principles, otherwise they mean nothing.
Thank you all. That concludes agenda item 9. Agenda item 10 and agenda item 11, the External Audit Annual Report 2021-22 and 22-23, and the Audit Committee Annual Review of Effectiveness. These items are for noting. With the agreement of the party group leaders, items 10 and 11 will be taken together with one round of speakers. I now move the External Audit Annual Report. This report was written by our audit partners, Grant Thornton. It was considered by the Audit Committee in July 2023, and as per the Redmond Review recommendations, it is now coming to full council for noting. So I'd now like to call on Councillor Andrew Brown to move the annual review report as chair of the Audit Committee. And Councillor Brown, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I don't think this is counts as the actual annual review. This is an extra paper that myself and the Vice Chair were keen to come to this body for reasons that I will outline as we go through. But I want to start first by acknowledging the Grant Thornton report and briefly highlighting 2 areas of significant weakness that were outlined in that report, because I think that they are significant to the Council. The first of these both follows on from and prefaces other debates in this chamber, and that's around financial sustainability in general over the medium term, and in particular in the areas of adult social care and children's services, including the DSG. And the other area is in improving economy efficiency and effectiveness, particularly around contract management. That's been a focus of the area of the current committee and will continue to be going forward. It's certainly one of the things on my handover list to the next chair. And so talk of handovers brings me to this paper, paper 11. And it has 3 functions really. It comes out of our annual self-assessment of committee effectiveness, which informs the usual annual report to full council, but it also acts as a handover document for the new committee and will be presented to them in the first session in the new civic year. And it's coming to this chamber specifically with the intention of keeping audit in the forefront of members' minds as we move into the new committee system. Now, I know that I and the committee are not perfect, and no doubt members will have view on things that could have or should have been done differently. But I also know from talking to my peers and other authorities, as well as professionals in the audit space, that we do exercise best practice in a number of different ways within the committee, and the report lists some of those. But I want to highlight some of the key challenges for the committee, considerations that party group leaders, whips and members should bear in mind ahead of the next civic year. First is that the importance of audit maintaining independence from the other committees in the new structure. And I reiterate the call that I've made in this chamber before, that members should consider audit as important as all the new committees, and that they should consider it as a place where they can deploy their skills. Gaining assurance that the new system is working effectively, the Audit Committee is going to have a key part to play in the reviewing and revising of the committee system as it beds in. And the third area that I really want to highlight is our partnership and our awareness of what WECA is doing, and working with WECA Audit to ensure that there is oversight of joint programmes where delivery is being done by Bristol with WECA money and other arrangements. On a personal basis, I have enjoyed being chair of audit these past few years, and I would like to thank all those members, officers and others who have contributed to our meetings. As an aside, I don't think I ever thanked the member for No for putting me into the position that I ended up in. So, as this is our last full council of their term, I guess I should rectify that. So thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Regardless of what happens in May, I do hope that there are members here and potential members out there who are considering being on audit as a way of using their skills to contribute to the governance of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd now like to call on Councillor David Wilcox to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
As it's the last full council of the civic calendar, I would like to thank the Chair, Councillor Andrew Brown, and the other members and officers of the Audit Committee for their robust questioning and examination of the topics brought to the committee. Nobody expects the Audit Committee to be the Spanish Inquisition, but it does try to get a full understanding of the subject to support both the full council and the administration in making the best, if not the right, decisions. We will endeavour to work with a new cohort of councillors and bring our knowledge and experience to the next instance of the committee. The Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, CIPFA, has principles of good governance and financial management code to deliver these core functions: the maintenance of governance, risk and control arrangements, financial and governance reporting and supporting arrangements for audit and assurance. When the new committee is convened, it is vital that members are engaged and motivated to keep the new committee system honest and any new administration on the straight and narrow. Councillors and prospective candidates, please form an orderly queue to be members of the next audit committee.
Thank you. Councillor Breckles on behalf of Labour.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. This will be my last speech on audit. 2 years is enough for me and my neurodiverse brain. And if re-elected, I'll be reviewing the committees I serve on. Still, it's been a busy year, but I won't have time to mention everything we looked at, but I would like to highlight a few aspects. As today's motion is on care, and this is a huge area of spend for the Council, I thought it would be appropriate to mention the work the Audit Committee has done on this matter. While the number of children in care is rising, Bristol is performing well in short-term placements and stability. The oversight the Audit Committee provides is essential to ensure that we get both good care and financial outcomes. Likewise, the committee looked at temporary accommodation, another big area spent for the Council. I'm sure we'll all welcome the Cabinet signing off on establishing another council-owned housing company, following Goal on Home success, to directly provide temporary accommodation rather than use private companies, potentially saving the taxpayer £10 million a year. I'm glad with oversight of temporary accommodation, and the next Audit Committee can look forward to reviewing the work of the new arm's-length company. However, there is room for improvement. In the event of fraud, the Council should not just chase the small people, often individuals. Rather, it should look at whether major contractors are delivering what they're contractually required to do. I'll give you a small example. I had reports of road repairs that weren't up to standard before the contractor was sent back out weeks later to do the job again. We should be checking that work has been done to the required standard before paying out. That's basic fraud prevention. So let's renew our focus on going after major contractors when they fail to deliver what they were signed up to do. After all, we make sure we're happy with the work we have done on our homes, or our cars, or bikes even, before paying any invoices. I felt compelled to raise this as an audit committee when a fraud report mainly covered relatively minor instances, rather than contractors costing well into the thousands, if not millions. We need to look at whether we can scrutinise major contracts more effectively, because the door is open for the taxpayer to be ripped off again and again, and we need to close it. So finally, thank you to all the officers, the chair, other committee members for all their work throughout my time on the committee. I wish the next audit committee well.
Thank you. Councillor Hacker, on behalf of the Conservatives.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I welcome this report, which highlights areas of achievement and identifies development opportunities for the next municipal year. The Audit Committee has a unique and valuable role to play in the governance and accountability framework of the Council. It is a key source of assurance about the Council's arrangements for managing risk, maintaining an effective control environment, and reporting on financial and other performance. Key to the success of the committee is a clear understanding of its role, its responsibilities, an appropriate review of its effectiveness, and a focus on continuous improvement and development. The report has highlighted areas of good practice. The committee has received and considered a significant amount of detailed technical information. The committee's deliberations have been carried out in a spirit of cross-party cooperation and goodwill. The independent members have made a very insightful contribution. I would like to thank my colleagues who serve on the committee, especially the chairman, Councillor Andrew Brown, and the vice chairman, Councillor David Wilcox. I would also like to thank the officers for the support that they provide to members. The committee that was assembled in May 2021 largely consisted of newly elected councillors with no experience of serving on an audit committee before. It faced a very steep learning curve. For me, it provided an opportunity to be poacher-turned gamekeeper, as I had previously been quizzed by corporate audit committees consisting of executive directors and independent non-executive directors when working as an accountant in business. Officers who appear before the committee can be expected to face rigorous but fair challenge. The committee carries out its work diligently. I think the Audit Committee will assume an even more important role in future, as the new committee structure does not have a separate scrutiny function. The report is a valuable handover document for the incoming committee. The development opportunities identified can provide significant benefits in return for little expense. I commend it to the House.
Thank you, John. Councillor Hopkins, would you like to speak on behalf of the whole community?
Very briefly, I think that the first thing to note is with the change in the way that this authority is going to run, it will require the audit committee to be very much awake. We know a lot of the things that go wrong in the present type of administration. There will be things going wrong in the new type of administration, and the audit committee hopefully will be able to provide advice to stop some of those things getting out of control before they actually cost far too much money. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And as we're running quite a way behind, thank you for your brief remarks. Mayor Rees, you now have 3 minutes if you'd like to respond. Okay, so that item was for noting. We have an option here. We can take a break at this point, or we can crack on and get to agenda item 16 before we have the break. What's the... Crack on. Good. Okay, we'll do the next one then as well. The pay policy statement, agenda item 13. I'd like to move this report and call on Councillor Smith as a former Lord Mayor to second the report.
Seconded, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call on Councillor Lorraine Francis to speak on behalf of the Green Group. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can assure you I'm not going to take 3 minutes just to help the process. So I stand in my capacity as Chair to confirm the last HR report for this period. My only comment actually is to refer to the pay policy for senior staff. The pay policy does not include interims or agency staff, but this is an ongoing issue, and the committee has made sure that this issue is captured in our work programme of 2024. So that's pretty much my comment. So I mainly want to just thank the work of HR committee and members, your dedication and commitment to ensure that issues are discussed and actions adopted. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'd now like to call on Councillor Rippington to speak on behalf of the Labour Group, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will be reserving my remarks. Thank you.
See, it's easy to get a big round of applause, that's all you need to say. I'd now like to call on Councillor Richard Eddy to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, but I would be reserving my remarks. Members who are somewhat longer in the tooth in this chamber may recall former Labour Councillor Mark Green, who I'm delighted to see us over there. He regularly referred to his annual Audit Commission reports, committee report, as hardly needing to be retouched every year. I'm delighted Mark, as I say, is here. And to be fair, his successor, Councillor Andrew Banks, has very much the same option. I could equally share that sentiment in respect of my comments about the annual pay policy. For the last, 7 years, Tory group members have voted against it. This is despite the fact that 99.9% of the report is absolutely factual, indeed boringly so really, and cannot be faulted. But we have consistently pointed out that the claim that the highest paid member of staff, the chief executive, is paid no more than 10 times the salary of the worst paid employee is utterly bogus. And this is because the income calculations deliberately exclude well-paid interims and agency workers on mega income. Last year, we were solemnly taught here that this abject failure would be rectified this year. At the last HR committee, when the proposed pay policy report was considered, the paper did not include the promised correction, but after my intervention, officers assured us they would seek to incorporate it in the report here and now. Consequently, the Tory councillors on the HR committee abstained when it came to the vote, which is frankly not my normal practice, Lord Mayor. Now we come to reconsider the tweaked pay policy presented here. But at para 24, it merely states the policy aims that the pay of interims does not exceed the 1 in 10 pay multiple. Moreover, it makes no such commitment in respect of the numerous agency workers. Look at this complete budget is utterly unacceptable, and it helps to bring this council into disrepute again. How can we be claiming that the 1 in 10 salary multiple applies in Bristol when it manifestly does not? Once again, it's jobs for the boys and girls. Public sector fat cats being rewarded rather than the council frontline workers. So, Lord Mayor, it will not surprise you to hear that Tory councillors will be voting against again.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor, would you like to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrats?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I will keep this short and sweet because similarly, I've made the same speech, I think, every single year so far for this. The pay policy is 90% a really great report. There is obviously the issue with interims and agency staff not being included and therefore the figures not being entirely correct. We have attempted to work with the HR officers this year, and I hope that whoever sits on the HR committee of subsequent years also continues to bring this. I would like to thank Lorraine as chair for this last year and the officers as well for working with us. But the corrections has not been made to an acceptable standard for us, and so we'll be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Hopkins, to speak on behalf of the Noel Community Party.
Yes, it's an old chestnut, isn't it? It's been raised by several of us for a number of years. It's got to be fixed. It's got to be fixed. It hasn't been. And basically, the laudable aim then of having pay in mind and not excessive for some is just actually coaching horses is driven through that. Sometimes, some years more than others, but bluntly, it's a misleading report. We know that the government require a report written in a certain way. That's okay. But at the same time, plenty of notes can be put there to explain what the reality is. And I'm afraid, therefore, I can't support this at all. I must vote against it.
Thank you, Gary. So this will be another aye nay vote. The recommendation is shown on the screen and is on the
Lord
report.
Mayor, can I request, with respect to these three groups have demonstrated they have concerns here, could we please have an electronic vote, please?
Okay, yeah, we'll arrange that. So obviously, can you please ensure you're sitting in your correct position? Okay, you should be able to vote now. Okay, we have the results, 435 against 16 and 4 abstentions, so the recommendation is approved. Thank you, that concludes agenda item 13, and I will press on with agenda item 14, the appointment of Interim Director of Finance. I'd like to move this report and call on Councillor Smith, as a former Lord Mayor, to second this report.
Seconded, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you. The recommendation is shown on the screen and it is on the report in your agenda pack. Well, hopefully it will be in a minute. Okay, so this will be an aye. Aye nay vote, if everybody's happy with that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you very much. That recommendation is approved. Thank you. That concludes agenda item 14. How are we doing for time? Shall we have one more and then go on to the motions, or do you want the break now? Speak up, speak up.
2:15 and break.
16.
No.
We'll come back for agenda item 15. Okay. So, this is agenda item 16. We're skipping ahead. Special urgency decision, DSG safety valve. I'd like to move the report. This report is to note the use of special urgency provisions in relation to the safety valve programme at Cabinet on the 5th of May 2024. I'd like to call upon Councillor Townsend to speak on behalf of the Green Group, and you have 3 minutes, Christine.
Point of order, Chair. Do we not hear from the Cabinet member that states that it's urgent first?
No, as far as I know. It's you to speak first, and Councillor Craig to speak second. Just for noting. Yeah, the report is just for noting, so we've agreed to have a round of speakers, which we wouldn't have. But yes, it won't be presented. You'll speak first, and then Asha will speak after that.
Okay, so the safety valve arrangements are not about more money, it's about deficit write-off in return for restructuring and spending less on the most disadvantaged and vulnerable children in order to get an in-year balance over time. The product born of a decaying end-of-life government in negotiation with the ashes of a mayor system long since rejected by the city's electorate. The mayoral model in this city has existed for 12 years. 10 of these have seen Labour political leads for education and SEND. The current position of this universal statutory service is intrinsically linked, intertwined with the political choices, interests and values of the Bristol Labour Party. Those have now been confirmed to also be those at the national level. What these values amount to in practice is choosing to have secret talks with the DfE about signing a safety valve contract whilst making public claims that apparent confidentiality was at the behest of the DfE. This was exposed within hours when the DfE issued statements contradicting the very words that came out of the mouth of the mayor last week at Cabinet. Any work that's been done to mend what were described as fractured relationships with parents, a key element of delivering Better Value Send pathway, the pathway we all thought we were on until last Monday, is likely to have been annihilated by the actions of this chosen approach. This latest episode has put back relationship building with families probably beyond the position from which it started. Read the room. This culture of secrecy and deliberate deceit must change. It is not possible to co-design something if those for whom it is meant to serve are not included in that said co-design. There are still not enough SEND school places. There are still huge EHCP backlogs. Mainstream schools still offer or tolerate, some of them, varying levels of SEND children within their cohorts. This has been evidenced year on year in mainstream cohort data, the exclusion and suspension data, even in what were described as better years under the Labour mayoral system, still saw disproportionality for anyone who cared to look, and I did. Not having dealt earlier and more successfully with this has been a matter of political choice, and now we see this at the national level of the Labour Party. Since the Cabinet meeting last week, the national leadership of the Labour Party have confirmed that nothing different is going to be offered for the nearly 25% of families with children for whom SEND services are needed in our city. As we stand on the cusp of a general election that will apparently see our first national Labour government for 14 years, Labour's Shadow Education Secretary held the annual conference of the Association of School and College Leaders last week that there will be no plan put forward from the Labour Party addressing this SEND crisis. Bridget Phillipson stated that the challenge is serious, but that she needs to see the SEND system so that she can better understand it. People in this city and people around the country
Stop, please, Councillor.
are really asking
You've been told to
what is it
stop.
that the
You've
Labour
got
Party
time.
stands for and what exactly is the point of voting for.
Can you stop, please,
I am,
Councillor?
yes, I am. Thank you.
Well, there you go. I obviously have no authority in this chamber. Councillor Craig, would you like to speak on behalf of the Labour Party?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I want to make clear that there are no plans to reduce EHCPs or the issuing of them. This is a concern that has been raised by parents who have contacted me and other councillors directly. Our plans remain to have the right provision at the right time for the right child. This is the fundamental principle of our SEND and AP improvement plan. For background, the DFE introduced the safety valve as an intervention for councils carrying high deficits in the dedicated schools grant. We have a high deficit, in part because Bristol is not immune from government austerity. But we're far from being alone in this position. All our neighbouring authorities, Bath and North East Somerset, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire, entered safety valve agreements in 2021-22 and 2022-23. And there are now over 60 local authorities who have entered a safety valve agreement with government. The information on each local authority programme is readily available on the .gov website, and you will see that each agreement is unique to the circumstances of each council. The scrutiny and rigour we have been through to be able to enter the programme has tested the validity of the plan regarding SEND, and the main concerns from all was that the experience of young people with SEND needs to improve. As stated at last week's Cabinet, the Safety Valve Programme report could not be deferred. The DFE invited Bristol City Council to join the Safety Valve Programme back in the summer of 2023, and we entered a 6-month development period with DFE advisors who worked with council colleagues to provide a robust and deliverable DSG deficit management plan and the underpinning financial modelling. On completion of this process, the council's safety valve application was formally submitted to the DFE on the 12th of January 2024, following engagement with Cabinet Board, the council's Finance Scrutiny Task Force, and the submission was supported by the CEO, the Director of Education and Skills, and the council's Section 151 officer. The full details of our SV proposals are under embargo, hence the Cabinet report only dealing with the high-level outlines of the proposed actions and financial contributions requested. The DFE decision is expected imminently, and there are no guarantees that the Minister will support our proposals or offer the amount of money requested, which is approximately 54 million. But given the robust underpinning financial modelling, I expect a positive outcome. In a local authority not too far away, they too are taking the decision on their DVB proposals in a confidential session of Cabinet due to the key information being embargoed by the DFE. However, our ambition to transform SEND services is not dependent on the outcome of the safety valve submission, and our work on SEND improvements have been ongoing.
I'm sorry, can we have a point of order, please? I am chairing this meeting, not you, Councillor, knocking on your wood in front of you, okay? I know it was red, and I was just about to tell Councillor Gray to conclude. I don't need any help from you.
Christine has an extra minute before you interrupt.
Councillor Craig, would you consider, you have another 30 seconds, please.
Improving SEND services is a priority for the Council, with dedicated staff, send leaders working alongside our partners in health, education, parent and carers and children and young people with a deeply held commitment to improving outcomes for children and young people and their families. I understand that councillors, parents, schools and partner organisations will have questions about what the safety valve will mean for the city. If indeed our proposal is accepted by the DFE, there will be ample opportunities to hear more about
Asha, can you wrap up, please?
and
Thank
answer
you.
any questions you may have. We will be bringing a full report to our April Cabinet in order for you to have a further opportunity to ask any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Morris, on behalf of the Conservative Party.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm incredibly angry by what's happened. To deliberately and knowingly bypass the democratic process is truly shocking, but not surprising for this regime. But it's clear there are two distinct issues here. Firstly, safety valve and the views and opinions on the programme. Secondly, how the Mayor and his Cabinet have dealt with this issue and complete lack of transparency and openness. As councillors, one of the key things we must do is to assess the risks of any proposal going through. And this is one of the biggest ones we've seen in recent years. And nothing. Absolutely appalling. But turn to safety valve, in all honesty, I had not heard of it until last Monday. It's clear that other councils who have already used safety valve are finding it a challenge. It's controversial. And there are incredibly strong views on both sides, particularly those who see the target as impacting on the welfare of some of the most needy young people in society. It does, though, prevent the deficit on the DSG being written off in reducible reserves when the override ends in 26. In Bristol, SEND is particularly controversial after years of underperformance, be it EHCP, homeschool transport, and or provision of specialist school places. That's not the complete list by any stretch of the imagination. The relationship with parents has been broken and needs to be rebuilt urgently after the election. And this broken relationship is most clearly underlined by the Mayor and his Cabinet not engaging with parents, their groups of support, their advocates, or councillors, and just shows the administration's disdain of SIND. Both young people and their advocates. SIND campaigners are renowned fighters, not because they want to, but because they have to. And this is why. And then to be told by senior officers that this is an exceptional report, hence the lateness of publication. And then on the evening before Cabinet to receive an email which reads, "Written about the level of change outlined by the Safety Valve Agreement will require a whole city approach, which is why, as a key stakeholder, we are contacting you before an agreement is confirmed." I understand you may have questions about what this will mean for the city, and in the coming weeks we will be offering opportunities for you to hear more about the plans and answer any questions you may have. This message is 6 months too late. We should have had it ages ago. Chance to understand what's going on. But it just seems the insecurities of the Cabinet will win again. I think it's shameful.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. I'd now like to call on Councillor Tim Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group. You've got 3 minutes, Tim.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It seems extraordinary that we are here debating what is a very important decision, but only after it's been made, because knowledge of this decision was kept secret. The Council used urgency rules to bring this decision forward, yet was invited to join the safety valve process last July. We now know there was no confidentiality provision around this stopping consultation with people about this decision, or around adding this decision to the decision pathway. We know this because the Department of Education has said this. We know this because other councils in the same process have not been as secretive as Bristol has been. We know, as an example, that Bournemouth made very clear in January its involvement with the safety valve and made clear some of the key asks within their proposals to the DFE. So now we know that Bristol is the only authority that seemed to think the whole process had to remain so confidential. We also don't know what the Mayor and his administration have signed us up to. We know that the published papers talked about making savings, that's less money spent on services for disabled children, of up to £59 million over the next 5 years. We do know that millions has been cut from top-up funding. This is non-statutory support for 1,000 children in this council. Each of these children will be on the SEND register. Each of these children had been accepted as needing additional support. So it seems likely that we will see 1,000 additional EHCPs now being applied for. As funding for top-up plans has been greatly restricted, but those for EHCPs far less so, it seems possible that this will cost the authority more overall. I fully understand the financial concern the council has. I understand the desire to access up to £53 million to fund the deficit from government. But is it wrong to ask at what cost? Is it wrong to ask, can we really do this? I ask this because other councils have tried and failed and found their situation worsen when on the safety valve. If you fail to hit the targets, then DFE may withhold their deficit reduction funding. They may even impose new, stricter targets upon you. I note that we appear to have negotiated a time frame to deliver this over 5 years, a very short delivery time frame. I know that Bournemouth in January asked for a 15-year time frame to deliver. Did Bristol ask for the same in January? We don't know. In fact, has any cabinet member actually seen the detailed agreement? Do they really believe that such savings can be found without having a fundamental and possibly unlawful impact upon children in our city? If so, why have such savings not been brought before? I am concerned that the machinations to keep this secret.
Can you come to a conclusion, please? Thank you.
Has denied us reasonable chance to scrutinise and ask the questions that should have been asked. This is a lesson in how bad decisions are made. I simply hope this will not be one of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Gary Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
I won't repeat a lot of the expressions of concern that have been made. I'll agree with them. It's been an appalling process. What I would say is just one extra little thing to consider is that we went through a budget process. We all voted knowing that if we didn't come up with a budget that was acceptable, that we faced with potentially severe penalties as councillors. And yet most people in this room had no idea of this change of this scale that was actually going on, no ability to actually check it and decide to take that into account when placing their vote on the budget process. Disgraceful.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Mayor Rees, you have an opportunity to respond to the debate if you wish. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. I mean, let's keep it tight. Firstly, I'm sure members will be pleased to hear that you can actually, when you come in, you can refuse the money and not proceed with the system. We will take it up because we think it's the financially responsible thing to do. In a world in which local authority finances, and again, we may be in a different world, but or you may be, but I am in a world in which 2 major cities have actually filed a 114. Demand for public services going up just at the time that the cost of providing those public services is going up. And so this is a solution. But if you choose, and it sounds like you are intending to, it's your inclination to refuse to participate in this when you're in charge, then you would be at liberty to do so.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. That concludes agenda item 16, and there will now be an adjournment for 15 minutes. Refreshments for councillors are in rooms along the corridor, and the conference hall is available to us. We will start again at 8:45. Thank you. Right, so welcome back. Can we settle down, please? At this point in the meeting, we suspect the meeting is likely to run past the 2.5 hours allowed within the Constitution. Therefore, please can I move a motion to extend the time to hear the motion? I would say 45 minutes, at 9:30 finish if we can do it. All those in favour? Aye. Any votes against? Thank you. Agenda item 15, golden motion, the caring economy. The motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. I'd like to ask Councillor Amal Ali of the Labour Group to move the motion, and you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. As a Labour councillor and a mother, I want to play my part in helping Bristol's children get the best start in life. We have done a lot on this so far. Marvin's administration has protected children's centres and nurseries from the Tory austerity. I am proud of this. Other cities have not been so fortunate. As with any issue this big, there is, of course, more to do. We want this to be at the forefront of everyone's mind as we move to the community system. Many councillors here today will be aware of the difficulties facing parents looking for childcare. As a mum of 2-year-old twins and the parent of a child with autism, I am familiar with the challenges facing parents of send children in Bristol. Finding childcare and the right kind of childcare can make a crucial difference of children's lives. This is all the more difficult during the cost of living crisis. The UK is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, yet some parents, particularly mothers who want to return to work after having a child, are prevented from doing so, as childcare is so expensive that they cannot afford it. Not only is this wrong, it is counterproductive. Those parents returning to work would have more of an income to spend on their children and their families, and would pay more taxes, giving the government more funding to invest in education, youth centres, and so on. There are a number of things set out in the motion that we could be doing to build on our work protecting and investing in childcare provision, such as exploring whether WECA can use its investment grants to ensure new childcare providers to set up all new strategic for the capital cost of new childcare centres. These are just a few suggestions, but by no means are an extensive list. They might not provide feasible for some reason or other. The motion is meant to be the start of conversation, not just within the council, but throughout the city, and our partners, and an affordable effort to keep childcare at the forefront of our agenda. In May, childcare provisions needs to be one of the first things on the agenda of the Children and Young People Committee. If we support carers, support early years...
Sorry, Mark, can you come to a conclusion?
Oh, sorry, I'm
Thank you.
finishing up. If we support carers, support early years, and support nursery schools, this will help us towards our goal of making Bristol the best city to grow in. Thank you, and I hope everyone supports this motion.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask Councillor Hornson to second the motion, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor and fellow councillors and Councillor Ali. I would like to second this motion. We know the impact of affordable care on families, the impact of the world's highest fees on family budgets, impacting mostly women. However, I would like to talk about the importance of the first 5 years of a person's life. This is the time when the brain grows and develops into the fastest time. We learn to speak, thus helping us learn to read and write. We learn to listen, thus giving us the capability to learn. We then develop food tastes or eating habits, thus impacting our lifelong health. The inequality is baked into our society from an early age. We know this. We have so many scientific papers stretching back decades on the harm and stress of poverty on an individual's potential and opportunity in life, especially in the first 5 years, and especially experienced myself as a teacher. And yet, in the UK, the average height of a 5-year-old has shrunk significantly since 2010. 1 in 5 children are skipping meals. 13,000 children in Bristol are living alone in emergency accommodation. That does not account for all those living in unsuitable or overcrowded homes. Oliver Schutter, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, described our benefit system as grossly insufficient, not enough for basic subsistence. Even for those in work, which is hard to do with such a young child, the tax cuts in the recent budget are laughable. For those of us earning under 25,000, we actually pay more tax. The least we can do as a council is to guarantee a grant-maintained nursery schools. So our current Conservative government has finally started to do something and is rolling out subsidised childcare places, you say. But it's using our tax money to private equity investors to make a profit on our nurseries. The quality of these is extremely variable. Our current maintained nursery provide high-quality early education led by specialist head teachers and delivered by qualified teachers and nursery nurses. These are the ones we need to maintain. We need to protect these at all costs. What we should be working towards is that childcare nursery settings are part of an education department, funded by us all, just as the NHS is or our schools are. Education is the fundamental right of every child, and their future health and happiness and stability should not be determined by the wealth of their parents. I would urge all your council to join me to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hornsby. There's been an amendment from the Green Group, which has been published online as a supplement earlier this afternoon. And I'd like to call on Councillor Lisa Stone of the Green Group to move the amendment. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much. Yes, this motion is a good motion if it's for a child-caring economy. However, we are moving an amendment to support, strengthen and update this for election year. Clearly, the author wrote this some time ago as it referenced 2023. We are adding in requests to lobby national party leaders rather than the current government and the appropriate committee rather than the mayor. For the Greens, a caring economy is wider than preschool childcare. Carers are also care for vulnerable adults and our elders. So it surprises us that the Bristol Labour Party has chosen to omit the TUC strategy for care workforce and the work of the Bristol Women's Voice, so we have proudly added them in and their asks. I am sure we all know somebody who is caring for somebody close to them. Take Ashley, who always misses college because he needs to look after his mum, who needs support. There is also Ishmael, who's always late for class because he must walk his little sister to school. And Ian, who has cared for his partner for the past 8 years while she recovers from cancer. However, they are not part of the caring economy because according to how GDP is measured, social value is not added. Unlike dealing drugs, which has boosted the economy by £10 billion since 2014, states Sarah O'Connor from the Financial Times. There needs to be ambitious, progressive change concerning the caring economy. And how we got here must be challenged. Social value needs to be considered in a new approach to the economy. For more than 100 years, Tories and Labour have been swapping places and promising a better economy for all. But the trickle-down economy is an experiment that simply has not worked. And in the next two-horse race, the horses are wearing the same colours with the same economic values. Democracy is broken. We are looking to you to lobby your national leaders and fund the caring economy by financially supporting childcare and adult social care. The Green Party wants to see a progressive economy where welfare economics is applied to how we measure the success of our society and how this affects the overall well-being of the people.
Thank you. I'd now like to call on Councillor Christine Townsend to second the amendment.
I second Lord Mayor, but I reserve my remarks.
Thank you. We will now hear from speakers on the amendment. I'd like to call on Councillor Renard to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Today we're discussing a topic of huge importance that impacts many lives, and for me, it's personal. In April 22, myself and my partner welcomed a beautiful baby girl to the world. And it was a difficult birth. that required speedy and professional intervention by emergency caesarean to ensure both mum and baby came through okay. I remain hugely appreciative to all the fantastic NHS staff at Southmead Hospital who kept them safe and supported us afterwards. We need to look after our wonderful NHS. It is full of incredible people doing incredible things and remains a system that is the envy of the world, free at the point of entry. Now we're almost 2 years on from my daughter's birth, and we have the joys of trying to navigate the childcare system and its costs. We were fortunate to secure a place at a nursery, although it shouldn't have been the case that we had to get a place sorted whilst my partner was still pregnant. Between us, we spend more on 4 days a week of childcare than we do on our mortgage every month. I've also brought my daughter into this chamber during a cabinet meeting given juggling responsibilities. I'm grateful to see an administration that's been inclusive in its approach to cabinet members navigating family responsibilities. Inclusive approaches are where we need to be. However, at the moment it relies on good leadership, while national government have failed to address childcare sufficiently, other than to try to implement the plan that Labour had already come up with. As a Labour group, we're proud to back the principles of the caring economy. Mums, dads, guardians, foster carers, and the caregivers, our brilliant workforce, all have a role to play in delivering the caring economy. Children and young people must get the best start in life. I wish to extend my thanks to the work that's gone into this from Bristol Women's Voice and the wider network of organisations involved. It is carefully considered and offers solutions to move things forward. Now, regarding the amendment itself, whilst we will support it today, I want to address a few things. We only received this amendment this morning, so I haven't had a huge amount of time to consider it, and we'll back it because we support the TUC's campaign and flexibility of choice for those in care, which seem to be the main gist. We are concerned that this makes the motion too diffuse. After all, it was about childcare. It waters down the caring economy work, which has had a lot of input from organisations across the city. I think it shows you haven't looked closely at the work, but instead wanted to make national party political points. This is disappointing. It's a shame you feel you couldn't support their work without doing this. I'm somewhat concerned about how it also wants us to collectively write to all parties about care provision. All parties, it's quite a loose definition. I can assure you that the monster Reagan Looney Party will not be getting a letter on council paper with my signature on it. But nonetheless, we will support this amendment, even if it is quite weak. Thank you very much.
I'd like now to call on Councillor Smith to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. I'm going to be brief at this point because I'm popping up again in the next bit. We could and would support the original Labour motion in the form that it was drafted. We do have some concerns about funding and affordability of some of what's in it, but fundamentally it's a pragmatic motion, it's asking sensible things to solve a real problem, and we would happily have supported that. The amendment, though, takes a sensible motion about childcare and tries to fix the entire social care system with enormous unfunded spending demands and no concept of how that's going to be met. And it simply would not be responsible to go along with that, and so we can't support that. Councillor Pearce, you're looking magnificent tonight, having come along as a party magician. Do us all a favour and make us amends disappear.
I'm disappointed that the rest of you didn't get the email.
Thank you. And I'd now like to call on Councillor Clark to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. So I think this amendment seeks to tidy up the original and gives us some clear actions. However, I do struggle a little bit with the comparison in the text where you compare the care profession with the construction industry. And I don't think that analogy sits very comfortably with my group, and we certainly wouldn't have chosen that. The change of dates in the text, I think, refers to the fact that the motion was probably written some little time ago, probably last year. That just looks a little bit clunky. And the addition of a reference to the modelling of provision across the city certainly adds weight to the motion and a measurable outcome. However, I'm sure that this work is already being carried out within the council, but this motion simply highlights and formalises that activity. I note that one reference to the mayor has been replaced with the committee system, but this should have been carried out throughout the motion consistently. I don't think that this is down to the Green Party, but it really comes down to the person who has proposed the motion initially. And I think that again reflects the fact that it was written some little time ago. In the same section, I don't think that anyone would disagree with the notion of upskilling and training the workforce. We have a duty to offer the best quality training and job opportunities for the staff, and our children need the best care to equip them for the life as they grow up. The references in the amendment regarding lobbying our national leaders is for the Liberal Democrat group an easy one, as our leader, Ed Davey, is well known for his work around particularly children with disabilities and has worked tirelessly on raising the profile and the need for good quality childcare provision delivered by well-trained caring staff. My group will be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I'd like now to call on Councillor Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
Yeah, well, 90% of the amendment is basically the Greens care more than the Labour Party, which is, a political point of view. That we can, understand. What concerns me is the bit that's already been referred to, which is you put money into caring and you get more jobs than you do if you put it into construction and less greenhouse gases. Well, that's fine, but people need somewhere to live. It's the carbon footprint of somebody who's rough sleeping is probably very low indeed. But it just is a ridiculous analogy to stick into this amendment. It just does not make the slightest bit of sense at all. And we need an explanation if we're going to go along with the rest of it, which is basically saying, we care very much for care workers. So, could we have an explanation of that, please?
Thank you, Gary. Councillor Stone, would you like to respond as mover of the amendment?
Yes, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to say, it was because of the title. It was called the caring economy. If it was called the child caring economy, then maybe I wouldn't have decided to put the amendments in. But there is more to the caring economy, which is what the title of your motion is, than just preschool childcare. So call it what it is. If this was about childcare, then describe it as such. But that was the title. The proposal also mentioned funding. We agree. Yet your shadow education secretary has confirmed there is no plan for SEND crisis, for the SEND crisis. This will include those preschool children your motion seeks to support. And despite 8 years of a Labour-led mayoral system, automatic registration for those entitled to free school meals or entitled to pupils premium has still not been sorted out. Despite there being a proven pathway for doing so, that has been followed up by other local authorities, maximising income for all providers has simply not been a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Ali, would you like to respond as mover of the motion?
Actually, the motion was not written in 2023, it was written in February of this year. And we have worked closely with the women's voice. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are moving to the vote on the amendment. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure you are in your allocated seats so that your vote is recorded accordingly. You are voting on the amendment, the Green amendment, and I'll tell you when you can vote. Okay, please vote now. You have 15 seconds to vote. Okay, the vote is in with 439 against 12 and 2 abstentions, so the amendment was carried. Thank you. We will now hear from speakers on the motion as amended, and I'd like to call on Councillor Annie Stafford Townsend to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Well, obviously we're very pleased that the amendment is carried, so thank you very much for that, everybody. As a presumed government in waiting, we hope that Labour will successfully lobby their own party to step up and fund the caring needs our city and our whole country needs. And we hope that Labour successfully lobby their party to adopt a TUC strategy for the care workforce, and they ensure that those that do the most valuable jobs in society, that's caring for our children, caring for our elders and caring for those most marginalised, are able to afford to live themselves. And we hope that Labour create an environment that welcomes and values those workers, including those migrant workers who make up a vital part of the workforce. And we hope, as the administration are waiting over here, on this side of the chamber, that Labour provides more funding to local authorities to enable us to meet all of our caring obligations in the future. The Green Group will be voting for this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stafford Townsend. I'd like now to call on Councillor Steve Smith to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, Mother. Should not be the Labour Group first? Happy to jump in.
No, it's all right. We said that we didn't want.
No problem. Thank you. In that case, Mother, I like to think that I've got my finger on the pulse in here. I can read the mood of the mood. And I know that what we all want to get on 9:15, our last meeting of term is an economics lecture. So here we go. What we've got here is a motion that demands extra spending, more money across a whole range of things, but simply stamping our feet and demanding money is not a solution to a problem. The Mayor often speaks about the financial context that we operate in, and he's right, but I think he misrepresents what that context is. The view from the Mayor's office may well be that central government is just sitting on a load of cash and just won't give us any because it's too tight, whatever. That misses the big picture. There are serious, big, real challenges in our economy that affect all of us, whether we're in local government, national government, private sector, or whatever. And those challenges, by the way, don't go away if you change the government. You can't just magically make them disappear or ignore them. The government's borrowed hundreds of billions of pounds to support this country through COVID and then through the cost of living crisis and energy bills. The only complaints I heard about that at the time was that it wasn't enough. But that has to be paid for. Meanwhile, the NHS, for all the complaints about cuts, the NHS budget is a third bigger now, in real terms, than it was in 2010. That's tens of billions of pounds a year that has to be paid for. Demand for other government services. The welfare bill right now is a record high. That has to be paid for. And that is why, despite recent tax cuts that the Chancellor has made, we still have the highest tax burden on this economy since 1948. We're just getting over a global inflation shock. It hasn't gone away. And that means that we have highest interest rates that we've seen for decades. That combination, high taxes, high interest rates, low productivity, means that our economy faces real challenges. As a country, it is struggling. And that doesn't go away. That doesn't go away if you change the government. A different government...
Come on, everyone, let's listen to what Steve's got to say, please.
You can change the government. It doesn't stop it from being a pandemic. It doesn't get paid back those hundreds of billions of pounds that the government had to borrow to support this country. And those things in combination mean that our economy has struggled. Now, the OBR says that the government is doing the right things. Growth is going to return to the economy thanks to what this government is doing in the next couple of years. But massive unfunded spending demands put that at risk. You cannot simply hold out your hand, point at the central government, stamp your feet and demand money and expect that the economy will just provide it because you want it. That isn't the reality in which we live.
Can we not shout out, please?
The demands made in this motion, as amended, are not responsible, it's not fiscally prudent, and we will not support it.
Thank you, Steve. And I'd now like to call on Councillor Tim Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll stick to the motion rather than macroeconomics, if that's okay. My old lecturers will be very keen to hear that because I did fail my economics at university. So I'll stick to childcare. So I'd like to welcome the motion and many of the proposals which are clearly well researched. And I do thank Councillor Amal Ali for bringing this. Clearly a lot of work has gone into this motion. Access to affordable childcare is a major issue for families, a real barrier to accessing work, and a real issue on the economy of our country if we want to see economic growth. Increasing affordable childcare capacity is clearly important. Within our own area in South Bristol, with the growth in homes, it's been an issue that we have raised on several occasions. I myself have often pointed out that the Henbury Park development needs to have a nursery provision within it. I will continue to make that point. I think we should also acknowledge the important work though by childminders and the extra capacity for childcare that they provide within our city. Childminders face a great deal of regulation and inspection these days. Like many within the system are underpaid. I was recently speaking to a childminder in South Bristol about some of that additional regulation they personally face, and she pointed out to me that as a business, she's not actually allowed to take in a child that she's closely related to. If she does, she's to be paid zero for doing that. So there's actually a business disincentive, which is sort of a crazy situation, crazy regulation. It's often through early childcare and nursery provision that special educational needs are first spotted. Ensuring we have clear routes to help those working in this area to identify, support and activate early intervention will be essential to improving outcomes for children with SEND. Education settings often are very high quality nursery provision. I also accept that parental choice and a lack of nursery places at schools means that we do need to embrace many forms of childcare, whether that is nurseries at schools, children's centres, private nurseries, playgroups or childminders. All provide a very rich mix of provision that we just need to ensure is funded better. For a thriving city, ensuring that parents have access to high quality and affordable childcare is essential. We are creating an attractive place to live with a strong economy, and if we wish to increase output, as I believe Councillor Smith was very keen to do. I think the motion brings forward some strong suggestions. As the mover said in her original speech to us, this is the start of a conversation, and we are happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd now like to call on Councillor Gary Hopkins again to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
Very important subject, as there's been an attempt to tackle it and do something practical. I'm not certain whether we've got there or not. And I certainly didn't get an answer to my question about why the negative comments about the construction industry, which are rather important to a lot of people in this city. So basically, it's difficult to know whether I can vote for this or not.
Thank you, Gary. Mayor Rees, do you wish to respond to the motion?
Okay, I mean, I'm going to obviously support the motion and want to work forward, but I do just have to pick up, because Councillor Smith, I think, you know, there are times when we've met and I think you're, you know, a reasonable guy, but if we're going to mean that the debate in this chamber is better, we've got to do the kind of thing that we tell our kids. Don't misrepresent the position of the person you're arguing against if you're genuinely about the business of getting to truth and some solutions. Our approach to finance has not been one of just stamping our feet in the front of government. We've been to Department for Trade. We sat in their offices up in London. I've talked to Michael Gove directly at LGA conference, and we talk constructively about, we don't get away from what we think is inadequate local government finance, but we talk to him constructively about local government spending not just being spending, but being seen as investment. Spending money on care is an investment in unlocking productivity of our population, a pathway into economic activity. We talk about the role of unlocking private finance, which is why government has taken Bristol City Leap and supported it to be rolled out, replicated it in York, and is it York, North Yorkshire? In North Yorkshire, because of the model to finance. So we've never just sat back and stamped our feet and taken that approach to government. It's not the nature of, of the relationship. It's also important to point out when you use the previous way because you got into the national government's performance. But our criticism on local government finance is not just about the quantum. With core cities and with the LGA, we talk about local government finance being short-term, unpredictable, and too often competitively based, consuming disproportionate amounts of local government time to try and get access to the finance that we look for. So if we want to have a meaningful conversation around our relationship around finance, you need to take those subtleties and nuances into account, because otherwise there's no space for the conversation. And the promise of this chamber, post-May, is one of fantastic collaboration, right? And you've got to get into the habit of engaging in the behaviours and the quality debate that will enable that collaboration, I suggest now, rather than leaving it to after May when everyone's jockeying for what position they're going to have, on what committee. It is important to recognise that we're dealing with national policies that have crashed the economy, right? Rishi Sunak warned Liz Truss about the policies before it happened, so the current Prime Minister warned it would have disastrous consequences for the economy. We must recognise the self-harm done by Brexit, increasing inflationary pressures, restricting our labour supply, all that have had negative consequences for the financial challenges we face as local government. And you cannot come up with a position that seems to suggest that it doesn't make any difference who's in power. There are some factors and some drivers that are beyond anyone's influence. But government does matter. Government policy does matter and does make a difference. And you can't just dismiss that.
Amal, would you like to respond as a mover of the motion?
Yeah, hi. It is getting late, so firstly, I don't want to take too much time, basically. So I wanted to thank all of you for supporting this motion, and thank you for all the and thank for all the organisations in Bristol that have worked on the Caring Economy campaign as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to the vote. This will be another e-vote. Please ensure you are in your allocated seats so that your vote is recorded accurately. You're voting on the motion and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. I'll tell you when you can vote. Vote now, please. Okay, the votes are in. We have 44, 12 against with 1 abstention, which means the amended motion was carried. So, thank you. That concludes the golden motion. What appetite do we have for... You heard what the people said, Gary. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say that was probably the most unpleasant council meeting I've ever had, the chair. And I'd just like to remind people at what I said in agenda item 1. As with any council meeting, please treat each other with due courtesy, tolerance and respect. Thank you all.
Lord Mayor, before you depart, could I just indulge Amanda's time for 2 minutes. I appreciate it's been a long time, long and demanding meeting. I promise you I didn't actually detain that. In members' forum, I said it was quite historic with our city secretary departing, wish you well, but it would be very remiss not to mention some by name, some significant features in Bristol's political history over several decades. And I make no apology, it will be short, but I made a note of their names because I didn't want to forget anyone. As well as the mayor, there are 2 deputy mayors, Craig Cheney and Ash Craig, who have been key members of the mayor's cabinet during his time as mayor, and obviously they are moving on and standing down. I've then listed 3 what I've called 3 big beasts. Not all of them may actually appreciate that description, so my apologies. The first one is, and I'm privileged to call her a friend, Helen Holland, and I suspect Helen made more key decisions over her political career than all of us have had hot dinners in our lives. I would also like to pay tribute to Mark Bradshaw. I may not always have agreed with Mark, but he was a bloody good transport cabinet member. So well done and well I would also, another member of Margaret's cabinet was Nicola Beach, who is also stepping down. Now Nicola, I've said before, I probably admire her most for actually chairing successfully the local land working group. It was like her detached, or like her then I've got 3 respected party movers and leaders, and I've got Steve Pearce, particularly because he looks so resplendent today, of course. But also Chris Jackson, who's not here, who's been Labour Chief Whip for as long as I can recall, before Tim Rivington, of course. And Brenda Massey, who's done fine work in Bristol, but also on Avonfire, of course, which he leads. Finally, I've got 3 Lord Mayors, and I know Chris Davis from Knowle, he's stepping down. I think, Gary, he actually was Lord Mayor on 2 terms, or was it 3? Yeah. Leslie Alexander from Truva, who made a very distinguished Lord Mayor, and also, last but not least, Lord Mayor, yourself, Paul Goddy. I have to say, it's probably the record. You probably endured more personal challenges this year than anybody who's held the office. So I'm pleased you, even though this meeting has been long and arduous, you've had a good year. Well, it's ended up fairly well, and I wish you the very best in the future. Obviously, there are backbenchers and others who are stepping down. I wish them well and good luck. I'm not very good at maths. In fact, it was my worst subject at school. It won't surprise members to hear I therefore spent all my professional career in personal finance. Seems natural, really. But I reckon we're not really tossing up. We're probably talking of almost 200 years combined of service to Bristol, which is no TV. We all know politicians have a very poor press. Some of it deserves, some not, of course. But we do know, all of us in this chamber, what sacrifices we make it even more so our partners and our families who shoulder a huge amount of the burden. So thank you for that hard work, thank you for that service to Bristol, and all the best of luck in the future.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I'll say that on behalf of everybody else you said nice things about as well, I'm sure.
FA